cinema sadly mourns the passing of a screen legend. After 13 years of sending victims to their graves, Jason is finally going to his own.
Hello, faithful Haddonfield radio listeners. Adam Marcus here. I just want to thank you all for tuning in to hear all about my film Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Jason Goes to Hell has been an important part of my life's journey, and I'm sure that Christian and Joe are going to cover a lot of ground in the next couple hours. But in just a couple of months, you're all going to get your opportunity to hear the whole story when Hearts of Darkness, The Making of The Final Friday, becomes available on Red Shirt Releasing from Synapse Films. But in the meantime, Christian and Joe, let's see what you boys have got. Happy Friday 13th, y'all.
Hello, listeners past, present, and future. This is Haddonfield Radio, where, as always, we bring you the history, legacy, and lore of movies, trailers, and more. I'm Christian White.
And I'm Joe Francazio.
And this season on Haddonfield Radio, we will be joining you for a deep dive fan commentary journey through every single film in the Friday the 13th franchise, featuring everybody's favorite, devilishly destructive deadite, Jason Voorhees. It was dawn of the high summer triple solstice across the realm of Asgard, and thus a great feast was readied by All-Father Odin, son of Bor and god to all gods, in his high hall of Valhalla. The merriment would be in honor of his wife, All-Mother Frigga's naming day. This was a quite lofty honor, reserved for the most prodigious and loyal of the All-Father's cherished bloodline and brood. And now, after long centuries of faithful matrimonial service to both Lidskjalf, the throne of wisdom, and the long-living patriarch who sat in its seat of service to the 9 realms, her husband, Odin Borson, the master of ecstasy, this day would be deservedly hers. From the clairvoyance of her youth in the wetlands of Fensalir, Frigga foresaw this, her eventual naming day, taking her rightful seat by the side of her consort and lord protector. But her visions of this day always seemed shaded by hues of nightfall, as though some obscure blackness still awaited her in her near future. However, as the morning light fractured into a prism and danced across the many-colored walls of the ancient painted glass of her sleeping quarters, Frigga drew a deep, cleansing breath and welcomed forth her day. In her honor, the High Lord of the Aesir saw to inviting 12 of the most venerable deities of the proud Norse pantheon to bear witness to Frigga's blessed distinction. And as each of the invited passed through the gate of the slain and arrived to shining Valeskjalf with its walls of pure silver to exalt her, they were each nobly heralded by the mournful howls of Odin's 2 beastly direwolves, Greed and Hunger, before taking their rightful places around the All-Father's resplendent banquet table. And welcoming them each upon arrival with a barely perceptible nod was the great lord of the frenzy, All-Father Odin, sat proudly astride his throne, Lidskjalf. By his side, in apotheosis, was, of course, the esteemed guest of honor, Frigga, and sat next to his mother, Baldur, god of innocence, in all of his righteous resplendence as the first son she bore to Odin. Next to him sat the venerable Tur, the one-handed god of justice, and her second son with the All-Father. And finally next, the truly favored son, and Odin's great promise, Thor, god of thunder, his massive hammer Mjolnir resting by his side as he snuck the hallhound's scraps of meat from under the table. Also present at Odin's banquet in their lasting and mutual reverence of the All-Mother Frigga, were Odin's war master Heimdall, guardian of the Bifrost, and a mountain of a man with gentle gray eyes, who was said to have been born of the shared wombs of 9 legendary giantesses, and who was known far and wide as the strongest under Yggdrasil, but for Odin himself. To Heimdall's left sat the already quite lubricated demigod Njord, Lord Steward of the celestial oceans, and infamous across all corners of the heavens for both his majestic sense of merriment and unmatched ability to imbibe, which never ceased to tickle the very cockles of the great bear Odin's mischievous fancy. To the left of the ebullient and already quite fairly shit-faced Njord was the striking and beautiful daughter of Valkyries, Sif, clad in her mystical helm, tamped of uncorruptible steel and wreathed in 7 radiant golden feathers plucked from the great eagle corpse sculptor's fabled wings. Sif had spent many long lifetimes striving to rise through the ranks of the Asgardian military elite, now defiantly ranked second lieutenant of the Allfather's personal guard. Yet, despite her legendary prowess as a warrior maiden, Sif unfortunately bore far further renown as the oft-scorned wife to the Allfather's favorite son, Thor. Seated sullenly next to Sif, hooded in midnight black robes revealing little more than his stoic scowl, sat Vidar, the Norse god of silence, who was really only invited by the Allfather at the impudent behest of his immovable wife Frigga. She had reminded him, quite tersely in fact, that as it was her naming day, he, as her loving husband, would do well to remember that as son to her beloved mother's sister, and thus her first cousin by blood, Vidar would, in fact, be dutifully summoned. Even if she also silently held him to be nothing more than a prudish and pickled little twat. Finally, claiming 2 of the 3 final seats around the lording table, were the last to arrive, having had furthest to travel. Firstborn, yet having her ascendancy deemed illegitimate, was Allfather Odin's dark and striking daughter Hel, who served both as a humorless thorn in the side of her progenitor, and hence guardian of the underworld. She was joined, as ever, by her eternally faithful consort Hod, the so-called blind god, who had only ever loved the darkness, that is, until he met and fell immediately under the incontestable sway of Hel herself. Finally, perched most loyally of all, to the very left of the Allfather himself, in the most cherished and ancient seat no less, were found Thought and Memory, Odin's prized twin ravens, which had accompanied him at all times and across all 9 kingdoms since the moment of his ostentatious nascency from the womb of the horned Jotuness, Bestla. These 2 imposing, guttural black birds were claw-scratching and shitting all over the hand-carved godswood of the chair's 2 ornate antediluvian armrests. Odin made cooing sounds, while hand-feeding them only the finest fish cheeks, which the 2 ravens guzzled down with endless noisy aplomb, which greatly warmed the heart of the old one-eyed shield shaker. And just as Odin repeatedly clanged a dagger's edge mightily against the corner of his overflowing goblet of foaming mead, he slowly rose to his royal feet to begin the first of what would have been countless epic toasts in Frigga's name. But all of that was interrupted by the arrival of an uninvited 13th guest. If you know your mythology, then you may have heard this story chronicled in the ancient Scandinavian texts of the Prose Edda that tell of this supposed cursed 13th guest, Loki, the trickster god. Loki had been raised as a ward of Odin, more a prisoner really than a son. And yet Loki had come of age with Thor, Balder, and the entire royal family, and he knew each of their personalities and weaknesses with a special intimacy. Loki had spent a long lifetime capitulating to Odin and his godly kin, and he had burned much of his brilliant and cunning nature trying to earn the old one-eyed man's hard-won respect. A fruitless folly that had stretched across the millennia, finding himself more often painfully mocked for his efforts by the All-Father's favorite sons, Thor, Tur, and Balder. And so, when Loki caught wind of this celebration of Frigga, the mother of sorceresses' naming day, and that again he had been overlooked, Loki devised a shrewdly Machiavellian plan to enact a curse that would be forever bound to the appellation of his so-called adoptive mother's grand legacy. After showing up to the party quite purposefully uninvited, having passed by both of Odin's guardian wolves with equanimity in the shape-shifted form of a stray cat, the trickster god arrived at Odin's halls of Valhalla just as the old bear had raised his first glass to his wife's blessed name. Loki insisted that they first all bear to tradition and compete in a lively familial drinking game. Thor, never facing down a drinking challenge, was first to agree, and after a stern look, both of his brothers, Balder and Tur, also fell into line and seconded. Frigga, ever the seer in sensing a dark twist to Loki's pursuit, chided them to give up on the gamesmanship and rejoin the table at once. But it was too late. And during one hotly contested and entirely drunken game, Loki manipulated the blind god Hod to hurl a dart directly and unknowingly at Balder, Frigga's first and fairest son. As the mistletoe dart struck Balder and pierced his flesh to the uproarious laughter of his inebriated brothers, the wood poisoned Balder's blood, which quickly led to the god of innocence's untimely demise, an event which utterly crushed Frigga and forever cursed her naming day. It's truly fascinating when you consider how much of our day-to-day life in the modern world remains fairly ubiquitously influenced by, of all things, ancient Norse culture. Take, for example, the naming of the days of the week. Historically, both Sunday and Monday have always been, amazingly enough, across many cultures, reserved for both our utter subservience to the godlike influence of the noble and life-giving sun and the celestial controller of the oceans and tides, the moon. So, in honor of these two astral giants, the Norse, as well as the Romans after them, devoted Sunday to, of course, the sun, and Monday to the moon. With that out of the way, Tuesday through Saturday belong exclusively to the landmark pantheon of Norse gods, the first family of the Vikings. Tuesday is Tur's Day, Tur being a son of Odin and the Norse god of innocence as well as, of all things, combat. Wednesday is devoted to the eldritch patriarch of the Norse, and so that day is Odin's Day, Odin being so singularly central to the lives and dreams of the Norsemen, just as Wednesday is central to the geometry of the 7 weekdays. Thursday, well, that is Thor's Day, of course, bound dutifully to the right of his father Odin. Friday, as her naming day party was intended to celebrate that fateful day in Valhalla, is Frigga's Day, first of Odin's wives, mother to his sons, and perhaps the most powerful practitioner of arcane witches' magic in all of myth. Saturday for the Norsemen was a day of bathing, reflection, and rest, and thus, in deference to this, the day bore no real moniker until the orgiastic Romans christened the day in the name of Saturn, who they believed blessed them with agriculture. Of course, There was never a day named for Loki, god of all tricksters, and he never forgave it or forgot it. And yet since Loki, the uninvited 13th guest, ever the devoted ward and prisoner and sufferer and unwanted son, would never have dreamt to rob the All-Mother Frigga of her naming day. So he gifted her perhaps one of his most devious, destructive, and seemingly everlasting maledictions. And with that, the curse of Friday the 13th began snaking its insidious denunciation of chaos, dread, and utter misfortune across a swath of long centuries. And as those centuries bled onward out of myth and into legend and finally then the annals of written history, so did Loki's dread curse install itself and its infection into the era of the new Christian god. Many scholars have noted the uncanny similarities found between the mythological story of Loki's cursing of Frigga's naming day and the story of the biblical Last Supper. Jesus and his faithful 12 disciples were celebrating his prophetic final meal together before his crucifixion, until they were interrupted by an uninvited 13th guest, Judas, the betrayer of the host. Sound familiar? Also, the arrangement of chosen guests at the Last Supper is believed to have given rise to a long-standing Christian superstition that having 13 guests at a table was a bad omen. Specifically, that it was courting death. Friday itself, in the Christian tradition, also took on a dark significance, as it was said to be the day Eve gave Adam the fateful apple from the tree of knowledge, as well as the day Cain murdered his own blood brother, Abel. And the curse continued onward throughout time. It was Friday the 13th of October, 1307. The legendary Christian warrior poet Jacques de Molay, Grand Master of the Knights Templar, along with over 60 of his senior knights, were rounded up, arrested, and tortured on the rack by decree of King Philip IV of France. These forced confessions led to the brutal executions of the Knights Templar by means of holy flame and consecrated iron, and this barbaric cleansing led to the believed end of their apocryphal order. The Knights Templar were infamous crusaders of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, and until they were ultimately betrayed and castigated for their perceived wealth and influence, they were protectors of the faithful in the Holy Lands and represented the very last vestige of the nobility of faith in God. Their esoteric secrets left a remnant mystical pathway to subterranean organizations which led to the American continent and the founding of the infamous Freemasons, who carried forward the careful import of the number 13. It was Friday the 13th of November, 1891. The body of Francis Coles was discovered at 2:15 a.m. by Constable Ernest Thompson as he was passing through an archway of the Great Eastern Railway, which led from Swallow Gardens to Ormond Street. Fearfully shining his lamp, he found to his abject horror the body of a woman lying in a pool of coagulated blood, which was flowing from a terrible wound to her throat that ran from ear to ear. Francis Coles is believed to be the final victim of the murderous specter known throughout history as Jack the Ripper. It was Friday the 13th of July, 1951. The state of Kansas is absolutely walloped with a massive, unforeseen storm of near-biblical proportions, as vast portions of the flatland state is hit with over 25 inches of rain in one single day. The cities of Lawrence and Topeka were quickly declared disaster zones, with millions of civilians affected, and by the time the rain mercifully slowed, the rising waters of the Great Flood of 1951 had claimed 28 lives and displaced well over 500,000 people, many of whom would never fully recover. It was Friday the 13th of March, 1964. Arriving home from work during the early hours of the morning, Catherine "Kitty" Genovese walked behind an alley where she was confronted by a local drunk and rabble-rouser, Winston Mosley, who repeatedly then stalked her all the way home under the cover of night. As soon as Genovese approached her building, Mosley saw an opportunity and struck, repeatedly, viciously stabbing her. Mosley took his patient time with his aberrant and heinous assault, wildly tearing her clothing and robbing her while she screamed seemingly endlessly for help. By all accounts, Kitty Genovese would have been able to witness the horrifying fact that while numerous of her neighbors and random passers-by were able to hear her distinct cries for help, some say possibly up to as many as 40 individuals, none of them, not one single person, as though paralyzed by some unseen force, ever came to her aid. Genovese died from the savagery of her attack, and her killer, Winston Mosley, truly apathetic to the bitter end, was ultimately convicted of the crime and later died in prison. It was Friday the 13th of March, 1970. Police discovered 9 murder victims which bore eerie similarities that led investigators to believe them to be connected. The 9 murders, dubbed the California Astrological Murders, seemed utterly driven by an assailant who chose to kill during a season's solstice or subsequent equinox. 2 of his victims were murdered on Friday the 13th. Victim Marie Ansey was believed to have been first kidnapped by her attacker on Friday, March 13th, 1970. And subsequent victim Carol Hilburn was found beaten to death on Friday, November 13th, 1970. The case has never been solved, and the perpetrator never uncovered or brought to justice. Some have speculated that the 9 victims may have very well been victims of the feared and notoriously fugitive unknown subject, the Zodiac Killer, who also remains unidentified to this very day. It was Friday the 13th of November, 1970. The single deadliest tropical cyclone ever recorded, known historically as the Bola cyclone, struck Bangladesh, which at that time was known still as East Pakistan. This storm, which reportedly emerged as if out of thin air, remains the most cataclysmic weather event ever recorded and unmatched in its sheer ferocity to this day. Once the storm began to dissipate just days after it began, it had cost upwards of an absolutely unimaginable 500,000 human beings their very lives. It was Friday the 13th of October, 1972. A plane carrying a closely bonded team of Uruguayan rugby players and their coaching staff, families, and friends crashed in the remote and nearly unreachable wilderness of the high Andes Mountains. Only 16 of 49 survived the horrific crash, and then were faced with enduring, immeasurably harsh conditions, including catastrophic freezing temperatures and less than the bare minimum of food. And as most know, as their numbers risked dwindling even further, survivors had to resort to the ultimate taboo, cannibalism, if they were to have any hope of surviving long enough to be rescued, which finally happened many harsh weeks later. The survivors, now bonded by entirely deeper secrets some would take to their graves, were never the same again. And then, on that very same day in Russia, a catastrophic crash cost the lives of 174 people when an airliner fell out of the sky and crashed mere moments before landing outside of the capital of Moscow. It was Friday the 13th of June, 1980, Candy Montgomery, a doting and bubbly Texas native, wife and mother, found herself embroiled in a very out-of-character and quite torrid affair with her neighbor and best friend Betty Gore's husband, Alan. When confronted civilly by her friend and confidant about the affair, on an average sunny weekday morning, Candy Montgomery hacked Betty Gore to death with a wood-splitting axe, leaving her toddler daughter crying over her mother's eviscerated body. Amazingly enough, Candy Montgomery was acquitted of the charges of murder, later claiming successfully in a court of law that her vicious, obviously motivated and calculated attack had been merely self-defense against a painfully betrayed and scorned wife. However, Candy Montgomery bore not one single scratch from her so-called assailant's attack. And finally, it was Friday the 13th of August, 1993. The ninth film in the long-running and unimaginably influential film series, Friday the 13th, is being released into theaters full steam ahead. This being the first entry produced since the Friday franchise was sold off by series producer Frank Mancuso Jr. and founding studio Paramount Pictures back to Sean S. Cunningham, the series originator and director of the trailblazing, if still referential, 1980 original film Friday the 13th. And Cunningham brought Jason Voorhees straight to New Line Cinema, the house that Freddy built, with the hopeful prospect of a potential eventual lucrative team-up with his slasher icon contemporary, Freddy Krueger. Yet, as promising as all of this sounded, as it seemingly always has been with the Friday the 13th film series historically, things have a funny way of very quickly going, just like Jason Voorhees in this entry, straight to hell. This is the history, legacy, and lore of Adam Marcus's 1993 sequel, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. And Joe, after all of that bluster about Vikings and curses and this and that and the other thing, if you're still awake out there and sitting right next to me, I have to ask you the question that hopefully people are waiting for you to answer at this point, 31 frickin' episodes in. Joe, what do you think, generally speaking, of Jason Goes to Hell?
Excuse me, I had to put down my mead here in the Great Hall of Odin. Wow, that was a hell of an intro. I was feasting. I thought I was at a feast. I'm sorry. I had to put down... I was getting into it.
He's gnawing on a goose leg over here. I often wonder if people tune into these episodes and the intro start and they're wondering if they're even listening to the correct episode because it's a half hour about Vikings. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Anyway, Joe, what do you think about this damn movie? 9 movies in.
Hot take. I like it. I really like it, and
wow!
And I have to say, though, let me preface it with, it was a journey. If you had asked me that question about a year ago, I would have a very different answer. But a lot like Halloween 3, which kind of took some time to grow on me. It's a kind of a different entry in the series, and although I feel a film should really stand on its own 2 legs without having an explanation behind how it was made make it better, I do think that my learning about this movie and diving into it has made me really appreciate it a lot more, and then through now just multiple viewings that I probably wouldn't have given it more viewings of in the past, but for this episode I really like it. Like, if my choice is like continuing with what they were doing with Jason Takes Manhattan versus like something like this, then I gotta go this route. And yeah, are there problems? Was Adam Marcus a first-time director? Does some of that show at times? Sure.
Well, was Sean S. Cunningham literally leaning on him the whole time?
Yeah,
and almost ghost directing in many ways this film, to the utter detriment of Adam Marcus's experience as a filmmaker.
It is, and I mean, who knows what what was really happening or what was really going on in Sean S. Cunningham's head. But I mean, Adam Marcus was a family friend. He grew up in their house. He was best friends with Sean S. Cunningham's son.
His son Noel.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that it was a case, a little bit of maybe Sean thought he could control and manipulate this a little bit with him being young, someone who's always been sort of a more like a son figure in his life, and
This is really interesting. It's funny you brought up Halloween 3 because I find, actually, ironically enough, a lot of more connections in this particular entry to the Halloween franchise than I do to the Freddy franchise, which I think it's meant to emulate in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Sean.
Under the New Line Cinema banner, right.
Yeah, I think Sean has always had
and that's one of them right there.
Maybe that's why he made Friday the 13th. He wanted to emulate or make the money that Halloween was making, right?
Right.
So I think there's always been a little bit of that Halloween connection
but
because
what
of
I
Sean.
mean is, based on what you were just saying, which is right on the money, it seems like, in my speculation, in my reading of events, Sean S. Cunningham sort of brought Adam Marcus in, who was a family friend,
right,
who was someone who he had like a personal relationship with. And it kind of reminds me almost of the way Mustafa Akkad would choose these young directors that he could kind of put a hold on, basically, that he could control, for lack of a better word. Now, I'm going to say, you know me, I say all throughout the 3 seasons of Haddonfield Radio that I'm all for the big swings.
Yeah.
And I also have complained in past season 3 episodes, lightly, that there was a lot of room for evolutions into the mythology of the Friday the 13th franchise and a lot of missed opportunities. And you really can't complain about that this time around. Adam Marcus really throws the kitchen sink of evolutions into this thing. I mean, it's an unbelievable, like, cataclysmic jump forward in the mythology of Jason, the Voorhees family, and the Voorhees mythos, and even the Crystal Lake mythos.
Yeah.
There are so many new ideas floating around in this film that that some of them almost feel arbitrary, even though I think a lot of them are very, at least, interesting.
Oh yeah, I think it's a case of, it was Adam Marcus's first film, and I think he just tried to do a little too much.
I agree.
He tried to give it his all, and
I feel like he was almost like spiritually avenging Rob Hedden from the last film, who was also a young neophyte director who sort of had his larger vision for the 8th film kind of compromised to oblivion.
Right.
And I think Adam Marcus, I'm not suggesting he did this consciously, but I think he sort of, as a director and as a writer and as a thinker, he sort of gets a lot of really audacious ideas into the film.
Well, he's a student of horror film. I can't say that about a lot of the other directors. No, I mean just horror.
No, you're
like
right.
Classics, Frankenstein, Dracula, all that type of stuff. I mean, like, all the B-level horror, or all those early 70s, 80s gore and stuff. Like, Adam was all over that stuff. He was watching every one of those movies when it came out in the theater. So I think it was very easy for him to sort of look at the Jason story and see all of its, like, I'll say one thing I kind of disagree with when he talks about why he added so much mythos to his story was that it wasn't really there before, and I kind of disagree with that, although it is very messy. So I do agree that, I see why Adam would want to maybe solidify the story a little bit, but there's definitely this almost implied mythos in those first 8 films
there's a lot
to Jason, and that there's all these weird little supernatural connections in the lake. But it doesn't make a lot of sense, a lot of it.
As we've discussed so many times in the previous 8 episodes this season, there are so many unanswered questions about the origin of the supernatural aspects of the Voorhees family or of Crystal Lake itself. And it's almost like instead of answering any of these questions in the first 8 films, they just keep piling on more questions.
Right.
And sort of obfuscating the ability to find any of these answers by muddying the water with kind of convoluted storytelling.
Well, it was never a priority in those first 8 films to to make it all make sense. It needed to make sense within the film you were watching to a degree, but they didn't need suddenly whatever they were adding to Jason in part 7 or 6
No,
or
you're
whatever
absolutely
to
right.
tie into something from part 1 or part 2, but in a way that becomes a part of Friday the 13th, the DNA, the fabric, that sort of like I said, it's almost implied, a lot of the stuff that might be going on with Jason in the lake, and is there something supernatural there? It's never really stated, besides, well, he died there, we know it's his home base and all that, but you can pull a lot of little, well, in this movie, you see Jason do this, or he's a boy here, he's a man there, there's a lot of supernatural things happening.
Adam Marcus says in numerous interviews that he was interested in pulling on as many of those original threads from the first 8 films that he could, trying to see where they would lead and what kind of answer that they could come up with that would kind of make a satisfactory, obligatory answer to some of these long-standing questions that fans had about this character. Let's take a couple of them point by point. I want to talk for a minute and ask you a couple questions about your thoughts about the use of Elias Voorhees in this entry. Now, really oddly enough, they posit Elias as Jason's brother this time around.
No, it's his father.
No, I'm telling you, there's also, maybe it was in the development period.
In the movie, there's a news report that says his father, Elias.
I know, but there's also a lot to do with his brother. A character that maybe it was in the development of this film where there was going to be the use of the Elias name in that character, but it was going to be a brother of Jason, and he was going to be actually more violent and even more hulking, like the big brother, quote unquote, of Jason Voorhees. And I was wondering, did they misremember? And maybe, am I totally crazy? In this, maybe I'm totally off.
I found numerous.
I could be off.
Yeah, I found
Let me look it
numerous
up.
Elias. No, I found a lot of the Elias mentions, but it was always his father.
Hold on.
Throughout all the different developments, I never saw anything about a brother. But yeah, I don't know.
Look right here. In Jason Goes to Hell: The Final Friday, the character Elias Voorhees, Jason's brother, was planned but ultimately cut from the script.
I didn't see that at all. I have it as his father the whole time. In fact, what I saw was that they had tried to get Betsy Palmer back to do flashbacks, and they had wanted to bring in a parent, but that she obviously didn't want to do it. Supposedly, of course, because of money, and so then they started to try to focus on the father idea a bit, but it didn't work out. The studio kept kind of like New Line didn't want to go that way. And there was a few different versions of Elias kind of put together for these different intros. Hold on, now I'm having problems finding it.
I know, I'm looking through a lot too, but apparently in other iterations of the story, I guess through the video games, Elias Voorhees is considered Jason's stepfather as well. Now, I don't know if the brother that I find here is a misprint or a piece of misreportage, but I'm telling you, I've seen that in a couple different places in my research. Now, like we always say, you guys know from 31 episodes of this show, Joe and I are not experts. That's why we have to sort of parse this stuff out when we're doing this show, because we love to try to get to the bottom of some of these kind of questionable aspects of the lore. So if you guys out there know anything about that discrepancy, let us know in the comment section.
So one of what I have here is that one of Sean S. Cunningham's. Oh no! One of Adam Marcus's initial pitches, one of the early ideas was Elias Voorhees, Jason's father, was digging up Jason's body at the beginning of the film, eating his heart, and then taking on his supernatural powers and embarking on a similar killing spree. And then that's when they bring in Jay Hewley to flesh out Marcus's idea, and they kind of lose the father aspect of it.
Okay, gotcha.
And I feel like there was also...
Again, it just pains me to no end that the amount of times we've come so close to seeing the character, whether it's a brother, a stepfather, a father, a mother, whatever the hell he was, the character of Elias Voorhees kind of depicted canonically on film.
Well, and if you want to try and make any sense out of sort of... some of the statements that Jason's mom, Betsy Palmer, makes in the first film, and if you have to take that as canon connected to this film. So in this film, if the Erin Gray character of Diana Kimball, who was supposed to be Jason's, sister that we didn't know about.
It was great to see Erin Gray, by the way.
It was.
It really took me back.
Yeah.
And I have to say, not to interrupt you, but I had completely lapsed in my memory that that's Erin Gray.
Yeah, no, very non-typical role for her.
No, it's amazing.
She said she did it mainly because she had like a 13-year-old son who's really into horror makeup effects, and she did it for him.
I
really,
love that. But anyway, continue.
So if you listen to Betsy Palmer in the original film, and she's talking about Jason, she says, "My only child." Okay, so if we want to say that Erin Gray's character is his sister, it implies that it is a step-sister from his father.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And that's how she's got the Voorhees DNA. Because
the DNA is capable of truly kind of carrying the spirit of Jason.
So, because if you want to go by the mom saying, now there's other stories, and I don't know if any of this is canon, but there's also, I've heard the idea that first Jason's mom has the sister out of wedlock and kind of puts her up for adoption, doesn't want anything to do with her because she wasn't married. Eventually marries Elias Voorhees, has Jason, and really just considers him her only child and son and everything she's put her, love and effort into. So there's that route too, but I would personally tend to believe the idea more that she would be the stepsister of Jason from his father's side.
And it's like adding all this familial legacy, even the quote-unquote Voorhees house, which is strangely enough misspelled on the mailbox.
So yeah,
how does that? You have at least 100 people on a movie set. Not one of them noticed that the damn name is spelled wrong. No one in the entire art department noticed.
Well, it was the art department that did it. So,
nobody noticed.
No. And Adam Marcus, there's a great interview.
Adam Marcus didn't notice.
He talks. He's like
Sean S. Cunningham. Sorry.
Yes, that's exactly. He says that even Sean S. Cunningham was on set and didn't notice, and he's saying it's not my job. Is the art director did it and production designer put it up there, and he always jokes that if he ever got to go back and fix things in this movie, he would definitely digitally change the sign. He said that is the thing the fans get on him the most, and he was just like, it's just not my department. I'm the director, So it is funny.
Another one I wanted to touch on real quick is it really, really goes straight to my heart personally as a huge Evil Dead fan and Sam Raimi fan. It's all the allusions to the Deadites, the Necronomicon, the Kandarian dagger, all of a sudden bringing in literal, consequential genetic detail from the Evil Dead mythos and lore into the Friday the 13th kind of milieu when the Evil Dead films weren't under New Line Cinema's auspices. So it sort of blows me away that the Evil Dead kind of signature lore could be used, even though, of course, Sam Raimi had Freddy's glove in the shed.
So it's pre-established that these guys are all in the same universe. Which I love. Freddy's glove is in the Evil Dead, and yeah. So Evil Dead wasn't owned by New Line. Adam really wanted that connection to be there. So it's kind of sort of that we're not going to talk about it and say it out loud, but this is what I'm doing. And that Necronomicon book that's in the movie is the one from
you can identify it immediately.
He went and got to see, I think it was part 2 being filmed, and he just asked, and he jokes that, here's the difference in filmmaking where, Raimi just gives him the Necronomicon in a baggie, Ziploc baggie, he's like, here, but then when New Line sends over the Freddy glove for the end of the movie, it comes in one of those briefcases that are handcuffed to a person literally and needs to go, goes right back, and just two totally different approaches. But yeah, and I don't think whether you agree or not, I mean, it's canon. I mean, Jason Voorhees is a Deadite, a form of a Deadite. As
far as this incarnation of Jason is concerned.
No,
yes.
No.
So you're saying going all the way back to the beginning.
If you go back to any of these movies and say that any of these directors have had the power to apply all these weird things that we were just talking about to Jason's backstory,
Yep.
then you have to give Adam Marcus the same respect. And he definitively, he says, sorry guys, Jason is a Deadite. His thing is that Pamela Voorhees was so distraught at the death of her son that she uses this book to bring him back. Now, maybe it's not the same Deadites we see in The Evil Dead that can fly and give one-liners and all that stuff, but there are other pages in that book.
I like that.
And that he is brought back through those means. And so he states sort of definitively, yes, these universes all mix, that he is a Deadite, that he has been tampered with, his soul, by the Necronomicon and all of that. So
since a lot of this kind of connective tissue lore between the Evil Dead movies and the Friday the 13th movies was further developed in some of the subsequent comic books, including the Topps comic book of Jason Goes to Hell that came out alongside this film, but especially in the Ash versus the Evil Dead comic books, they developed much more of this out, and I love it. Like, I think it's very exciting and creative, kind of food for thought as a fan.
Right.
You know what I mean? I like it, but
well, I don't think it's food for thought. That's what I mean. I think you have to kind of say that it's all.
Yeah, I can respect that, but
retroactively.
I think in terms of the comic book lineage that connects a lot of this stuff, I almost wish that someone would do a comic book Friday the 13th story that actually depicts Pamela Voorhees enacting one of these resurrection spells from the Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
Wouldn't it be crazy if they brought that into the Crystal Lake series?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Something either like that, or in a comic, or in like an Elseworlds quote unquote novel, or some extended IP media that can now canonically sort of ties that in visually, in terms of to quell against someone fairly enough that might say, hey, look, if you don't see the events take place on screen, then they didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that would actually kind of alleviate some of that, and would be an interesting, subplot to depict.
Yeah, all this stuff about what Pamela did to this is all sort of just a theory based on what we see. Now a lot of this is coming from Adam Marcus. He is explaining himself in these ways. So you can say it's a maybe thing, but you can also kind of say, no, this is what it is. You don't really get it directly from the film, but if you do listen to these commentaries, Adam Marcus is very vocal about everything that goes on in this film, all his meanings, there is so much subtext, there is so much social commentary, there's so many Easter eggs, there's so many references to other horror movies.
Yeah.
You like the crate in the basement, right?
Yeah,
that's
Fluffy's
from
crate
Creepshow,
from
right?
Creepshow. That really
it also
me.
has a shared universe, which he ties back to Creepshow 2, where there's the black goo.
That's right.
And what do they find in Jason's heart when they open it up? Black goo. So he really, I give him credit for being able to put a lot of these Easter eggs everywhere that do make these connections.
I kind of like that he was almost trying to tie together like a broader horror universe from that era.
Yeah.
That is really ambitious and creative.
It was the early ideas of sort of the multiverse, or the sort of the way these monster universes are starting to all really intersect more nowadays. Like, he was kind of already doing it back then. So, and I can see, though, totally how this could rub some people the wrong way.
Oh, 100%.
And it did rub a lot of people the wrong way.
A lot of people literally hate this movie.
I know. And it's...
When I was researching this to get ready for this episode, I was actually shocked at the level of venom that sort of still exists in the fandom towards this film. And yet, like you said earlier, I actually really like this movie. I think at the very least, this movie is an entertaining kind of romp through a lot of the mythos and lore that you've fallen in love with 8 films in.
Yeah.
Or 9 films in now.
Again, if it goes back to, for me, like, Would you prefer they continue down that the road of Takes Manhattan, where things were getting? I mean, like we said,
become so threadbare.
It was like really loosey goosey with things making sense, and they were really kind of or this right. So and who knows what would have happened with like a part 9 if it stayed with Paramount, but.
I will say, though, on a counter note, I personally am not really crazy about the design of Jason this time around.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong.
What do you think?
You can nitpick like any film. There were some big problems. I get where people are coming from. It's just sort of, I guess for me, it's the overall, what the approach was, what the director's intention was, how much he cared. I really found all of that endearing, how much he was had so much to say, and then you go back and you watch it and you're kind of like, oh, okay. And he's got the new documentary about the making of this film, Hearts of Darkness,
coming out this year in 2025.
It's like making the rounds in theaters and festivals right now, but I think it will be available soon for everybody.
And our friend and certainly someone who has appeared on Haddonfield Radio a few times, Keith Voss.
Yes, he's
actually
involved with
appears in that documentary. So, for our listeners in the present and our listeners in the future, what the hell, and our listeners in the past, make sure you check that out when it becomes available, because that's going to answer a lot of questions, I think, about this film and about its legacy.
And thank you also to Keith for hooking us up with getting that wonderful intro by Adam Marcus for this episode.
Thank you so much to Adam Marcus for taking the time.
Keith kind of facilitated that whole thing, and Adam was really, really nice and great to deal with, and more than happy to do it.
It's been such a joy, literally a joy, to have Sean S. Cunningham, Kane Hodder, and now Adam Marcus sort of join in on season 3 and on the legacy of this season for our show. And Joe and I just appreciate that so much from the bottom of our hearts. So thank you to all 3 of those incredible, inimitable artists.
Yeah, all 3 of them were in this movie. They're all kind of connected to this one, right?
Also, what do you think about the opening of this film?
Well, that's kind of great.
I think it's the best opening of maybe any of the films.
It is. I mean, even people who loved Jason and hated that he wasn't in the movie a lot love seeing him get blown up. I think
it's almost something every Friday fan has. Nobody wants to see Jason get, stopped. Mm-hmm. We want the movies to continue. They're rooting for Jason. But everyone's wondered, how could you catch Jason or stop Jason? Right. What kind of military level operation would you need to actually stop him? Yeah. And the idea of the red herring of the movie opens just like you would imagine a Friday the 13th movie to open, and then gets the rug pulled out from underneath you. I have to imagine that if you were in the movie theater on opening night for this film, that must have been a very exciting opening sequence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And it's very much out of character from any of the other films.
Well, it's great because Adam Marcus sort of addresses this weird thing that never gets addressed in these films. Like, you have a serial killer in this one area of the country that is just wiping out tons of people, and it never gets national attention or brings in any sort of law enforcement besides the local sheriff, who will get killed trying to deal with it in the moment, and that's it. He says, well, wait a minute. Especially with Jason Takes Manhattan, once Jason leaves one state, has a multi-state killing spree, that becomes a federal problem.
As soon as you cross state lines,
and the FBI are the ones who come in at the end here and are the ones able to, because Jason is a physical form, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But one thing that I will say that I am unclear about, because I've read a few different explanations, I don't know which is accurate or if there is an accurate explanation, is I read in one thing that this movie basically ignores parts 2 through 8. That this is just a sequel to the original, and that's sort of why Jason looks different. They didn't go, and why the mask has been on him so long that it's grown, like his skin has grown around it, and it's because he doesn't have the same history of losing the mask, getting masked, and how it's just supposed to be sort of that he's been in the woods this whole time killing people, and they're finally going to get him.
Yes.
I've also read that it is only ignoring part 8, and because they just that was ludicrous
See,
to
that
them.
actually sits a little bit better for me.
It does, except for that I've heard how in interviews how Adam Marcus talks about the idea of the FBI coming in because he had gone and killed people in New York.
His exodus out of.
So
I was going to say
don't
New
know.
Jersey,
Well,
but there are some elements of this film apparently that potentially tie Crystal Lake to
it's in
Connecticut.
It is in this movie.
That's
it is in
very-
Connecticut.
I found that very interesting.
And so that is a weird nitpick. It's kind of like, well, haven't you watched any of the movies? Like, it is kind of, I think, definitively more or less known that it is in New Jersey in the originals.
Maybe it was an idea by the same art direction
the guy did
employee
Voorhees.
that did the Voorhees home
No
sign.
one told him that it should be in
I don't
New
know
Jersey.
who this guy was. God bless him. I wonder what kind of career he had after this.
Well, Adam Marcus and Sean Cunningham lived in Connecticut. So, I have to assume that was, I guess, the thing
sense.
there.
I want to just quickly talk about my absolute favorite aspect of this entire film, and that is Stephen Williams' character of Creighton Duke, Jason's bounty hunter.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Stephen Williams, the actor, who I always immediately think of from X-Files.
Oh, weird. I think
was
of
X.
21 Jump Street. Yes, but
He was on 21 Jump Street?
He was like one of the main
Oh.
teacher guys.
See,
yeah.
I never
cops. One of the cops.
I never watched 21 Jump Street. So
I mean, it wasn't
I know the
faithful to it, but
iconography
he
of
was
it.
like such a main character. But yes, he replaced Deep Throat as the secret informant on X Files, and I did think of that too as well. But for
Yeah.
some reason, 21 Jump Street jumps in my head first.
all you have to do is take a quick parse through Stephen Williams' incredibly epic IMDb page.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He has appeared in well more than numerous TV shows and movies. The guy's a seasoned performer, and notably so. When you watch him on screen, he's just impeccable in this movie.
And a lot of times, he's the mysterious character,
And to me-
and he just has this off-putting sort of sense about him, or he can bring that out in his acting. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and he brings a little bit of camp into it as well.
Oh, sure, but he does it dead face.
That's
Yeah, that's
what
what
it
I
is.
mean.
He does it dead face. You're
It's
absolutely
not
right.
camp to the character. You know
Yes,
what I
that's
mean?
exactly right. I love how you just put that.
And he got shortchanged. I mean, his character was in the movie a lot more in the original cut, which was like over 2 hours long. You got a lot more of him, and when we see the scene, I'll bring it up more. But there's a lot more to his backstory, and one little reference to it still made it into the film. This kind of doesn't make sense because they ended up cutting all his backstory. But I'll get into that more in the film. But he had a wonderful backstory that unfortunately got cut.
And I also see the Creighton Duke character as actually, in my mind, another connection along with the Voorhees house and the family connections, another connection in my mind to the Halloween franchise in that Jason now gets his very own Man in Black.
Yeah. Yep.
It's interesting how much the Halloween 5 Man in Black and the Creighton Duke character iconographically are so similar. And yet I read that it was actually Stephen Williams' insistence that the character dressed like a cowboy, essentially.
He said it was the only way he'd take the role is if he got to dress like a cowboy. Yeah.
I mean, he absolutely, and I'm talking Stephen Williams, the actor, not just the character, but the actor, he totally understands the assignment here. And he understands, in the balance as an actor that he weaves between, again, this campiness and this really kind of gravitas, I find really, really good. I think it's actually great acting. I think it's great.
He walks around and you feel it with that idea. He's the only one in control of this situation.
I was thinking he's the first.
He knows exactly what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And I was thinking he's the first character in my mind since Rob, all the way back in final chapter, that you immediately think, okay, I think this guy might be able to handle himself.
Yeah.
Now it didn't work out that well for Rob.
No, it didn't work out well for
anybody.
For Duke either.
No, it never works out for anyone going up against the undisputed king of killers. And I also wanted to say a quick note. Something I've been thinking of a while now, going through all these episodes, all 3 seasons. I actually personally thought of a term. You mentioned serial killer to sort of describe Jason or Michael. I thought of a different term because of the nature of their crimes and the style of their crimes. a serial mass murderer in that every time they, emerge to kill, it's a group.
It's never just one, right?
They always come out and kill a big group and then kind of either disappear, are thought to be dead, go and become fugitive, whatever, and then come back and kill another group. So to me, they're serial mass murderers, which is sort of like an undefined category in real world kind of criminal pathology.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting in the world of the slashers. And I think you could use that term in these movies. You could use the term slasher, generally speaking, to mean a serial mass murderer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So what else? Should we talk
agree with
about
that.
some of the movies?
I was gonna say, like, this was a crazy year. Like, it almost didn't have a chance. I think I'm always saying that.
We always say that,
against
I know.
what else came out that year. But again, you got to remember, we're on the 9th installment of a series. That doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think whether the movie was good or not, you're starting to equate later Friday the 13th movies with they're not quite what they used to be.
Well, they're certainly much more divisive.
And
amongst the fans.
Excuse me. In 1993, like Adam Marcus likes to say, like, no one told him, he never got the memo that horror was sort of on its way, not on its way out, but that the people didn't quite have the same love for it that they had over the last few years.
You know what happened? I think a lot really changed, like on a dime, in 1990 with the release of Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, sure.
Now, while the people who, like Jonathan Demme and the producers of Silence of the Lambs, refused to categorize their film as a horror film coming out of the slasher-led 80s, everyone that's ever seen Silence of the Lambs knows it's a horror film.
Yeah, they didn't say it because they didn't want to cheapen it by calling it a horror film, because they had people like Anthony Hopkins and,
And I think another film that really kind of added... that kind of changed the audience appetite was a movie we talked about last episode, which was Pet Sematary.
Okay,
year in 1989.
Yeah.
I think audiences had started to kind of hunger for a different kind of horror. And really, if you think about it, it wasn't really till 3 years after Jason Goes to Hell that the slasher subgenre really gets back on its feet with, of course, Wes Craven's and Kevin Williamson's Scream in 1996.
Right, a whole new take on it. And those earlier films you talk about, ones with strong stories, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it Pet Sematary, Stephen King.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, how can you go wrong with the origins of these stories? It's a very different approach than going after a Friday the 13th film.
Why don't you take us all through some of the just popular movies of 1993? Now, I've got to say, I'm looking at the list in front of me. I'm looking at the posters. What a freaking banger of a year 1993 was.
It just hit me, like, the number one movie, of course, was Jurassic Park. And think about it. It's 1993, and now it's 2025, and there's still new Jurassic Park movies coming out. Huh?
Talk about that franchise.
That is
and still hitting home runs.
It is
each time out, at least commercially.
Doing well. Yeah, it's crazy. So yes, Jurassic Park, number one film.
Can I just say something real quick? Speaking of Jurassic Park, you really have to think about something that's really unbelievable. I really consider 1993 to be Steven Spielberg's greatest year. He releases his biggest commercial film and one of the best reviewed films of his career, Jurassic Park, and then releases Schindler's List.
Right.
Ostensibly his greatest film. I mean, what a year for Spielberg. Can you imagine knocking both of those films out in a year?
No.
It's really incredible when you think about it. Anyway, throw some more out.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Wow.
Classic, of course.
God.
I mean, these are all Tombstone, Groundhog Day, Hocus Pocus, The
Fugitive,
Mrs. Doubtfire, Bronx Tale,
Grumpy Old Men,
Sleepless in Seattle, Falling Down. I love Falling Down.
Oh my God. Michael Douglas, Joel Schumacher's Falling Down. That movie, I haven't seen it in many years, but I know just from my memory what a prescient, ahead of its time film that really was. Considering that came out in 1993 and sort of feels like it's depicting the reality of right now in many ways.
And it was kind of a very different role to suddenly see Michael Douglas as the guy who goes crazy, sort of in, you know what I mean, like in violent and unhinged.
The thing I always remember, the imagery that has always stuck to me about that movie and stuck in my head is him being stuck in the traffic and then just literally stepping out and leaving his car there.
Because it's what we've all wanted to do a million times when we're stuck in traffic.
It's
right?
such a kind of lyrical, haunting, filmic moment that really speaks volumes about like the themes of that movie. It's like a perfect directed scene. I just love that. Oh, here's one of my old favorites of that era, Demolition Man.
Yep.
Stallone versus Snipes.
Good
Oh
stuff.
my God, I love that movie.
Stuff.
And you wipe your rear end with some sort of strange futuristic clamshell in that movie, remember?
I don't,
to this
but
day,
I'd have
do you
to-
know that people
I'd have
to
to go
this
back
day
and-
speculate about that strange little arcane detail from Demolition Man, that you use these strange kind of seashells to wipe your butt with.
Well, maybe that's what, did we used to do that?
Maybe that alone is worth going back and rewatching it if you haven't seen it in many years.
Carlito's Way.
Brian De Palma, a really underrated De Palma film.
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh, yeah.
And then tying back to your intro, the movie Alive, which tells the story that you were talking about.
That is so...
Right?
When I got to Joe's house and I was just about to start recording my intro, I noticed on Joe's notes screen in front of us that movie Alive, that depicts that Uruguayan rugby plane crash, came out in the same year as Jason Goes to Hell. I mean, that's a strange coincidence.
Dazed and Confused. I love that movie.
Wow, True
Romance.
Oh
I mean,
my
come on.
God.
Philadelphia. Huge. That was a huge movie.
Wow, wow.
Oscar winning for Tom Hanks, right?
Man, wow, look at that.
You know, so there's a lot. Menace to Society, What's Eating Gilbert Grape. They were all movies that are still talked about, you know, in a way.
Look, I personally feel that while the 80s gets so much attention as this, magnanimous decade for popular film, personally, and maybe it's because it's the decade I truly and we really came of age in, I think more respect should be shown to the 90s.
Oh, God.
The 90s, there were bangers after bangers in the 90s as well.
It was an awkward decade, but there's some really good movies. The Piano came out.
Oh, In the Line of Fire, Wolfgang Peterson with Clint Eastwood. That has that incredible moment where you see the villain played by John Malkovich. He sneaks the porcelain gun through the airport security, and I wonder how many creeps that inspired over the decades.
It's interesting. And this list of top movies.
Army of Darkness.
Right. But it
what
says
the hell?
1992 on it. That's what I was. And I don't. Maybe.
Let me Google it.
Maybe it was technically made in 92, but released in 93 because it's.
Let me just Google it, because it does not show up in my list of horror films from 1993.
Maybe this is a weird. Because there's another one here that says 92, but they're all listed here. Anyway.
I'm seeing 1992 according to Wiki.
Yeah, I don't know why it's
so
in
I don't
the
know
top
why it's
movies
there. Oh,
of
wow, John Woo's... that's also 92.
Cool
Hard Boiled.
Runnings.
There's a bunch of 92 movies. This is a messed up list you've made here.
This isn't me. This is IMDb.
Oh, never mind. Thank you, IMDb.
Top 50 movies of 1993. That's why I'm confused
One of our classic favorites from our youth, Dazed and Confused.
Oh, yeah, that's
Richard
what's saying. I
Linklater.
love it. Love that movie. Love it, love it, love it.
Why don't I take you through a couple of the horror films that came out in 1993? There's a few bangers this year. I think I've mentioned this one before in the annals of Haddonfield Radio. We both love kind of horror anthology films. And one that's been sort of overlooked over the decades and really shouldn't be was sort of a collaboration with Carpenter and Tobe Hooper called Body Bags. And the reason why it is so worth watching is the crypt keeper, quote-unquote, character that kind of ties all the stories together is actually played by John Carpenter. And he is so good in this movie and so funny. And it's almost like, I can't believe this is John Carpenter.
It's like a decent role more than a cameo.
Craggy old, crusty old, pissed off John Carpenter. But when he was filming that movie, he was, really lively because his performance is really, really funny and great. Let me see here. We've got, let's see. I'm going. Ooh, Children of the Corn 2. I never saw that one.
No, I saw the original.
I love the original. We've got Malachi. Oh my God! How about the Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood film, The Good Son? Do you remember that? And they took Elijah Wood right out of the Home Alone films cast him. Macaulay Culkin right out of the Home Alone films and cast him as a psychotic child.
I don't think I've ever seen this one.
It was like tonal whiplash for audiences.
Yeah. Wow. Had he done like My Girl yet and stuff?
I don't think so.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Which was another tonal whiplash because then they kill him off. Wow.
Spoiler alert.
It's making me realize Macaulay Culkin was taking some wild chances in his childhood acting career. I love that. A movie I really like. A movie that's very hard to qualify in genre terms. They have it listed here as a horror film. I think I'd call it more of a road thriller. Is California with a K, starring David Duchovny and a very young Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
One of his first really standout performances after he did Thelma and Louise.
But it's not a horror film.
And that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
It's listed in the horror films
That's
of '93. It is a very dark film.
Yeah.
But it's kind of tonally similar to like Natural Born Killers or
violence, but I wouldn't
Henry
call it
Portrait of
horror.
a Serial
Yeah.
Killer. It kind of has those like dark road movie vibes.
But horror. Yeah.
That movie, what's it called? With Lily Sobieski and Steve Zahn, and they're being chased by the 18-wheeler. Do you remember that movie?
I
Can't
do.
think of the title.
Yeah.
It's kind of along those lines. Or The Hitcher.
Yeah.
Kind of has vibes like that. Needful Things. Remember that Stephen King adaptation directed by Charlton Heston's son, Fraser Heston. Kind of interesting. He had a pretty interesting directorial career in the 90s, and then he sort of disappeared. And now I always think about the son of Anthony Perkins, who's directed Long Legs and The Monkey. I just always kind of associate those sons of the famous nepotists. Anyway, another Tobe Hooper film, Night Terrors. I have to admit, I've never seen this one. Apparently it stars Robert Englund. And I've never seen it. Have you?
I don't think so.
Oh, there you go. We're out of touch.
0-0.
We have Brian Yuzna's Return of the Living Dead Part 3. I love this movie from the early 90s. It took a huge leap tonally and stylistically from certainly from Return of the Living Dead, Dan O'Bannon's film, and even Return of the Living Dead 2. It goes into this whole other kind of territory. It had a female kind of sentient zombie lead. It was a different movie, but kind of had the same type,
All zombie things that go on for a while eventually get to that point where the zombies start to think. It's the only way that they can add new threats.
We've got another Stephen King adaptation. I actually remember watching this. I believe it was a miniseries. It might have just been like a movie of the week. The Tommyknockers. Mm-hmm. And it had the single, to this day, in my opinion, other than maybe The Rock and The Scorpion King, the worst CGI effects ever committed to film.
It was a TV movie, which is also probably why.
When you finally see the Tommyknocker creatures eating reality, they look so uncontestably ridiculous that you can't even lamentably forgive them, for their efforts at the time.
It's not the mid '80s anymore. '93, expect a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. And that's it. Not a very great year for horror.
Well, this was the year that we graduated high school.
That's right.
So this was I remember just a lot going on in my life at the time, and these movies happening, and it was a big summer of movies. I remember seeing half of these, in the theater. It was crazy.
I don't know how I just had a lapse and forgot that we graduated high school in 1993. It did not occur to me until this moment.
Sometimes I have to think about that when all of a sudden I hit a year and we're looking at the movies and I'm like, geez, I didn't, and I think about, well, where was I? What was I doing in my life? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I was wrapped up in this or that, and maybe I didn't get to the movies as much. But this was I remember for me, it's just a carefree sort of, it was the end of high school. I was going to go off to Boston, to college,
yeah, we had a
where
lot
we were
going
about
on.
to meet the next year.
Oh my God, this is
about
right
a year
about when we meet.
This is within this year we meet in '93.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
we start college, and then
that's taken me
we
back.
met.
Going through that list, especially of horror films, I'm realizing 1993 was essentially a shit year for horror. It's sort of surprising that a franchise film like Jason Goes to Hell only was able to essentially recoup about $15 million.
Yeah.
Now,
it had a strong opening.
About $8 million.
Yeah.
Really good opening weekend for that era.
But, it's the old, once the word gets out. Yeah.
Front loaded.
Yeah. And, he even will say, Adam Marcus, it was just a different climate at that point for horror. And he was still kind of in the 80s mode of horror making, and things were kind of changing. And so, I think he got caught at a weird time, also in having to make this movie. It was one of the longer gaps between Friday the 13th movies. 3 years, we sat around
just like
without one.
Oh, that's true. It's that is the longest gap.
So,
and it's sort of I don't know, this film, it only cost $3 million, which was $2 million less than they spent on Jason Takes Manhattan. The weird thing is, even though they ended up at New Line Cinema that had all this amazing capital from the Freddy movies, Robert Shea was just as frugal as Paramount Pictures.
The only thing they gave them more of compared to like Paramount was time. They were never like rushing to get this out, obviously. I mean, I think Adam talked about working on the script himself for like a year before he even got the job to direct it. So like it was, and I do think part of it was them figuring out when Freddy versus Jason can happen, or if it could happen then. I mean, that's obviously the whole reason why Sean S. Cunningham even went and got rights back
right to New Line
and tried to go to New Line and do all this. And I haven't read exactly why. They always say like the time wasn't right. They knew they had to wait a while. And again, I have to feel like that's just because of how strong Freddy was at the time, that they didn't want to affect that the steamroller that was going on with Freddy and everything, and so they kind of wanted to wait till that was done playing out before they really attacked it. But I don't know. We should probably think about getting to the movie.
Oh, let's jump in. Absolutely.
And say our thank yous though to everybody who's been sticking around this season, because let's face it, we've only got one more mainline movie for this.
No, two more.
Well, but then there's the reboot.
Then there's the
remake, what I'm saying? Like, so
you're counting that.
The story sort of is going to get more or less wrapped up one more time. But
this is
obviously
one of the 3 final episodes of at least the Friday films for this season. I personally am in complete mind-blown shock at how fast this season has gone by in terms of us producing these episodes.
I thought it was going to take feel like it was going to be a long time before we'd get to the end, and here we are at number 9.
And also, how wonderful and how much fun and how joyous literally it has been, and a lot of hard work, but joyous to research and produce and record these episodes. And more than anything else, the best part of doing these episodes is connecting with all of you guys out there all over the world who love these movies, in many cases even more than we do. I absolutely have so much respect for every single one of you that takes time out of your busy lives and your busy schedules to support our creativity here at Haddonfield Radio. It really, really, really means more to Joe and I than either of us can ever fully express to you, even across 31 episodes of this show. And
crazy.
Now 13 episodes of Trailer Park, 8 live episodes, and we still haven't had enough time to adequately thank every single one of you for your kindness, your knowledge, your support. I mean, the amount of friendly, wonderful people we have met through these 3 seasons of Haddonfield Radio it fills my tank.
Yeah.
It just completely fills my tank.
We've made some new legitimate friends through you guys.
All worthwhile.
And it's amazing. And the comments have been coming more and more. Even if it's just a quick, hey, like the episode, it's amazing. We love it. It gives us a lot of fuel to keep going and doing this. And like you said, there's not enough time. There's like a million different movies I wish we could just do in this style like every day. But
I agree.
it takes some time to make these, and we're trying to put more into them every episode.
Yeah, and I just want to say how much Joe and I both truly appreciate that you guys have been along on the journey with us, especially this season, as Joe and I have sort of been experimenting with sort of maybe evolving the format here and there a little bit, and adding some little sections and kind of tweaking other things.
You get to see us now at times and stuff, so
I really appreciate that. It's so easy, I realize nowadays, like when you're kind of working on a continuum and creating something across time, to easily kind of fall into predictable loops in what you're creating.
Of course.
And I really appreciate that you guys have been so supportive and so kind to us as we've tried kind of some new things here this season and developed the show a little bit, here and there in ways that, might continue on and might not. But Joe and I have had the frickin' time of our life creating Haddonfield Radio, especially this season. And we truly, truly owe that all legitimately to you guys. Am I right?
You're right.
I
Thank
wanted
you.
to send out a couple shout outs because we always shout out our YouTube listeners.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of faithful listeners over on Spotify. And there's a couple in particular, a couple of listeners that take time to comment on quite literally almost every single one of our episodes on Spotify. Our friends Tyler Keene.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes, Tyler.
If you're listening
Very
to this,
consistent.
I just hope you know Joe and I sincerely appreciate you, your thoughts, everything. Thank you so much for your support of Haddonfield Radio. And I wish I knew your real name, but you go by Pomparius.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And I hope I'm saying that right.
Right.
Pomparius or Pomparius. You're the man, if you are a man. Even if you're a woman, you're still the frickin' man. Even if you're them, they, you're still the frickin' man.
Yeah.
Am I right?
You're right.
We love you. Thank you so much. And of course, Mike Lesko, Brian Riley, Sandy Peterson, Spooky Halloween Gal. And how can we not mention the incredibly talented Mike Hatfield?
Of course.
Who's been creating all of our, quote, many faces of Jason artwork that has kind of accompanied all the posters of all these episodes this season.
He's really outdone himself, giving us new artwork for every episode, doing every version of Jason, masked, unmasked. He does artwork for our other episodes, like the Jaws one that just came out in the trailer park. Really a dependable and incredibly talented guy. It kills me when like we get something and he's like, it's what I could do quickly, and I banged it out and I wanted to do this, and it's like beautiful work.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm like, hey, I do stick figures, so like this is so amazing that you do this for us, and that it's so wonderful, and quite frankly, I want to thank you because whenever you draw Christian and I look pretty buff.
Yeah, you do make Joe look very mysterious. Why do you give Joe all the buff?
I don't know. It was great because yesterday he said he sent you the pictures of, you remember in the Jaws art he did of you.
Yep.
You're kind of looking at the shark with a surprised look on your face.
Yep.
Well, you made the same exact face when we did the Jaws episode and I held up the shark tooth.
Oh my God.
And he paused it and said, look, Christian's making the same face from the artwork. And
that's
you were.
Funny. I love that he gave me back my mullet.
Yeah.
In that Jaws poster. I was so my heart was so warm to see my mullet returned to my head where it belongs.
Anyway.
And for those of you guys who didn't see us, all like last season I had a big mullet while we were recording, so put that in your hat and wear it.
All right.
Anyway,
well,
real quick before you jump in, I wanted to ask you one quick other thing.
Oh, boy.
And when you were doing your research, just real quick as a funny little aside, did you happen to notice that in the development of Jason Goes to Hell, I think one of the original ideas that they were going for was this idea of Jason Goes to L.A.
Yeah, that was one of the first pitches.
And it was going to be like Jason gets himself in the middle of two rival street gangs.
Yep.
I think he like joins up with one of the street gangs to take out the other.
He gets the gangs to join together. They have to work
that
together
makes more
to defeat
sense.
Jason. Yeah, once they realize that he's picking them off.
Can I just say, I freaking love that idea. I think that idea would work now. And if you were going to, like you kept mentioning this idea of the potential of continuing on from Jason Takes Manhattan, that would have been the logical next step.
Yeah, I mean, Jason going all the way to L.A., and how he would do that unnoticed, or I don't know. It's interesting. It would have to go, yes, more in line with that Jason Takes Manhattan feel, a little bit of a tongue in cheek.
Well, it immediately reminded me of actually Predator 2.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Where you'd stick Predator in the middle of this, street gang war situation.
But at least he's got a ship and can land anywhere. Like Jason, it's so weird to think that he would go all the way across the country.
Yeah, why would he be going all the way to the West Coast? Well, it's crazy. But the idea that you would have this heavily armed street gang against Jason.
Yes.
That would have been pretty freaking interesting to watch.
Because it's like the difference there is usually when he's going after campers or whatever, like no one has any threat.
No.
And these would be all people who would have some sort of
at least some edge.
Exactly. Some weapons maybe.
I would have been remiss if I totally forgot to bring that up, because of all the stuff I researched for this episode, that was actually one of the things that really stood out in my mind.
Yep.
And it's again one of those, you always bring up these alternate endings or scenes that I always wish they had used. Well, that's another one. So anyway, anything else you want to add?
Well, yeah, we're gonna add a lot more when we get into the episode. I got a lot of good fun facts
I
on
just
this
mean
one.
before.
Nope. Well, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I got it. I got like 2 pages.
Yeah,
here.
just to sum up, guys, we're going to be jumping in. We're going to be watching Adam Marcus's 1993 slasher sequel, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. An enjoyable film, at least in terms of sitting down in a crowded, darkened movie theater on opening night with your popcorn and your soda, and just, I think you would have had the time of your life that night. I think you would have really enjoyed that movie if you went into it with the right mindset on opening night and an excited crowd. And so that's how I'm going to be watching this movie as we record our fan commentary. So without further ado, I say we jump right in to Jason Goes to Hell.
The Final Friday. Here we go.
It's weird not seeing that Paramount Pictures, logo come up on the screen.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting in a way to see the New Line Cinema logo pop up. You'd instantly, at this point, if you were in 1993, you'd be getting those Freddy vibes. Nowadays, I actually get Lord of the Rings vibes from that logo.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And it's nice to see this, a Sean S. Cunningham production.
In the beginning, and only at the beginning and the end of the movie do we hear the ch-ch-ch. Because, of course, we have Henry Manfredini back.
Now, that
it's my joke. You're sorry. I didn't want everyone
Henry
to think
Manfredini!
It's Harry. I know it's Harry.
Oh, my God, from a couple episodes
Yeah, I wanted to see
yes.
if you were going to... If it was going to
No,
catch it.
I didn't. It did. You skipped that one past me, but that's so funny.
Harry's back.
Yeah,
and
old Henry Manfredini Esquire.
And I think it's interesting. Yeah, there's not a lot of the
Yeah.
but probably because there's just not a lot of Jason, and it's sort of his theme. And if you apply that to the bodies he's swapping into, it almost gives away whether the audience thinking is he, because some of the bodies you're not sure. You're like, is it him or is it him?
One of the telling anecdotes that I kept coming across was this potential idea that I think Sean S. Cunningham sort of poo-poos a bit, that he basically leaned on Adam Marcus with this notion of get rid of that damn mask.
Yeah,
so maybe he didn't want that or any of that traditional iconography of Jason's mystique.
Right. Well, you got to remember, too, as much as Sean is taking the series back, he's inheriting a Jason that he never created. His movie is a Pamela Voorhees film. You know what I mean? So the story is Adam Marcus will swear up and down that he was told that, where Sean S. Cunningham kind of is now at least saying that he didn't say that. And it's funny because, Sean doesn't even talk about this film with a lot of great... He doesn't have a lot of great things to say about it. Yeah. I think he realized afterwards that, the old... like they did with Halloween. You don't... people want Jason, they want Michael, and you take too much of that away.
Can I just really quickly say, this little scene here, she goes into the shed. I immediately got Evil Dead vibes because so many iconic moments from Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 1 take place in a shed.
Sure.
So going along with this notion that there's this Evil Dead DNA running into this franchise now, I wonder if that was sort of
this also falls into the cliche of, this whole opening scene. Adam Marcus talks about how he throws literally every single cliche from all the other Friday the 13th of when you think Jason's going to pop out. And there were the other movies where the person would go out to go fix the power in the shed or the barn or the garage. There's that aspect too. But yes, like every time she bends down and stands up, you expect Jason to be standing there or looks into a mirror or opens a door. And he did that on purpose. You kind of wanted to get a lot of that type of stuff out of the way. Like he really tried to be original with, what he was going to apply to it, but he knew he had to kind of acknowledge some of the
it's interesting
staples
that,
too.
Like you're saying, the movie sort of lulls you in with a lot of the kind of vibes of the original 8 films, and then really pulls itself away from your expectations when Jason is exploded into 1,000 pieces.
So that's what Adam Marcus talks about. Like, he painted himself into a corner on purpose.
Yes.
He gives people Jason and then does the unexpected by blowing him up. So now the big thing is, what do you do from here? What do you do from there, right? That becomes the question. And he filled it in, the way he did with,
Unfortunately, you're going to have to repeat most of that because I'm staring at this absolutely gorgeous woman.
It's funny because that actress talks about that Adam absolutely hated her hair. And
I love her hair.
She's like, if you're looking at my hair and not my boobs, then we got a problem,
Oh, I think her hair is like a beautiful mane. I love it.
Yeah. No, and again, is it weird that it's kind of in this universe, like the FBI know all of the things that attracts Jason, right? I mean, this is an FBI agent. There's no reason for her to be getting naked and doing.
She's using herself as
it's a bait, right?
Yeah.
And so they know all of these telltale things, right? That will get Jason there.
That will lure Jason out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean. It's a great opening. This is Halloween to me, sort of the coming out of the darkness.
Yeah, I can see that.
And in a minute more when Jason gets blown up. No, I guess we don't say when he gets blown up here, but we were talked about him also being in this same universe as Freddy.
Right.
And when Jason dies and comes back in this movie, you see those souls
emerging out of him,
right? They come out one color, they come back another color to him.
Yes.
To me, that proves it more that he's like Freddy, an agent for the devil,
immediately
and he's a
reminded me of
soul
Freddy.
collector. Like those are all the souls of his victims from Camp Crystal Lake, and so it's that same idea. You know what I mean? That these are agents of evil for whoever reigns in hell.
Look, I know I might be alone here, and I sort of said this last episode, but in order for me to enjoy this iteration of Jason more clearly and enjoy this movie more clearly, I personally have to place this Jason as a multiversal alternate Jason on a different timeline.
Right, yeah.
Now, many of the events of the original 8 movies may well have happened to this Jason, but in order for me to enjoy this movie more cleanly, I should say.
So for you, even acknowledging that at least in this movie there's this multi-universe tie-in with Evil Dead and Nightmare, you don't necessarily will apply that to anything in the first couple? Like, you don't think he's in that universe in those?
I don't think this is the same Jason that died in Manhattan.
But is he in that same universe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just in a different timeline.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
But that's just me. And I'm utilizing like Halloween logic, Halloween franchise logic.
The great thing about this movie is that you can do that. You can apply it almost whatever way you want.
Well, that's
either
the
this
thing.
is the same Jason or different Jason. Whatever, it doesn't tell you straight out it is or isn't.
After 3 seasons of covering these movies, I think part of the absolute total fun is in all that thought candy, in all the different ways that you could take the character and the directions you could put the story in all these alternate or possible explanations for lore details and lore questions. I think that's part of the fun of these movies. Just coming up with your own fun.
Couple fun facts here. The female agent is named Agent Marcus. I have to assume as a little homage to Adam Marcus.
Unless it's just an incredible coincidence.
I mean, they named him, right? Yeah. So they know what they're doing. This guy over here on the left is Agent Abernathy, who was one of the writers. That even though he's not credited sort of on the main credits.
That did some of the doctoring.
There was a lot of writers along the way.
One of them, I think, was Leslie Bohm, who worked on one of the Nightmare films as well. I think Leslie Bohm did some script doctoring on this.
And did you know that the original title of this film?
I was just going to hit on this one because I really like it.
Is it the
Friday the 13th, Part 9, The Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees?
Yes. So
you don't like that?
No, it's just it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
And it's really kind of hand feeding you like his heart is the thing, It's like I don't know, so but Lewis, I see, Abernathy was named after Lewis Abernathy, who helped Cunningham make Deep Star 6. That's what it was.
Wow.
That's why he was on the credits here, and that's where he came.
So they were probably co-workers and friends.
Yes. Hello everyone, by the way. I forgot we're on.
Yeah, we're actually
on camera again. Hello. Yes, and you guys are seeing me take my notes and there's a cameo from Kane Hodder, the guy with the beard standing up, the agent there. It was great. Of course, we have Kane back, as Jason, and technically plays Freddy at the end with the glove, and he's this guy here.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's the guy doing the glove.
Oh,
so he's gotten to play all three. Like Michael, I think he did Michael at some point, right? For something.
I'm not
Maybe he
sure.
did all three, but at least he did Freddy and Jason, and technically.
Wow. And
Yeah.
wow, that really that's so
Yeah.
cool. I love that.
And he, also, Kane Hodder doesn't necessarily jive with this movie either.
Well, I was going to say, and I'm not trying to be dismissive or rude, but
Yeah.
of the films we've covered with Kane,
Yeah.
this is my least favorite so far in
Sure.
his performances.
Sure.
You can almost get this sense that he wasn't and I'm just speculating, but that he wasn't happy filming this, because I think there is a kind of shambly kind of feel to his performance that isn't as tuned in as he was in previous entries.
First of all, the mask when he is Jason, where in the others he could lift up the mask and there was a hole cut out and he could take breaths, and this one, because of the way it was made, he couldn't do that between takes. And he said it was very hard to breathe in there. Basically, you're sitting in there trying to catch your breath, but your only breath you can get is your own exhaled air because you're in there. So that made it hard. And also, he just wasn't Jason a lot. And he talked about trying to go to a lot of the other actors who were going to be the people that Jason inhabit, to try and kind of teach them a little bit of some of the mannerisms so they could apply it and keep it kind of consistent through all the people being Jason, some of the way he walks and stuff like that.
I like that. I like that.
But the other actors were not receptive to it at all.
Oh, that's too bad, because
and it kind of rubbed them the wrong way, I think.
That's like putting in the work to kind of bring the reality to life more adequately.
Yeah.
I like that.
He said they weren't really as receptive to it. And another fun fact about Jason's heart here, same heart that was used in From Dusk Till Dawn as Monkey Man's heart.
I did not.
That they
wow.
Yeah. Same heart.
And it's it's metatextual, but it's a strange connection back to Evil Dead again.
So many universes,
I mean,
right?
it's so, I love it. I love any of that connective tissue to any other horror film that ties these into a greater kind of shared legacy. Even on that meta level, I think it's good for all of these films, and it's good for the fans.
And in a moment when this coroner starts to eat the heart was made of gelatin, and it was filled with a fruit cocktail that they dyed black.
I think it was grape flavored.
But it was still so bad, gross looking, that this guy practically vomited. They said trying to eat those in those scenes, and I feel like you can kind of see it. It adds to his the animalistic sort of thing going on there.
That actor, as well as famous Candyman actor Tony Todd, both were considered to play Creighton Duke in this movie.
Well, they tried out for it.
Yeah.
And
there's a very Shakespearean kind of moment here. Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him well. Alas, poor Jason. I didn't know him at all, but I'm about to eat his frickin' heart. No big whoop. It's just something I do as a medical examiner.
In a second, the assistant coroner that's about to join this man is played by Dean Lorey, who was one of the movie's screenwriters.
His name was literally just on the screen.
Yeah.
Did you know or hear anything about the interesting sort of parallels between this film, Jason Goes to Hell, and the Jack Shoulder directed film, The Hidden?
Yeah. It's very similar, apparently, and Adam Marcus he admits, oh God, like it's weird and it's too bad, but he said he hadn't even seen it before he made this film.
The Hidden was 1987, and it wasn't a blockbuster or even a real big genre hit at all, but it did have some cult status even by this point in 1993.
Yeah.
It's a really, really interesting movie. Have you ever seen it?
No.
And Jack Shoulder, of course, directed Nightmare 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to check out and make some and see the interesting parallels, you should, if you haven't seen The Hidden before in a while, you should check it out in relation to Jason Goes to Hell. There are some interesting parallels, but there's a longer kind of historical legacy of body swap horror movies, and both of those simply fall into that subgenre category in a way.
I love that this guy's taking apart the body, though, and talking about all the bullet wounds and how many bullets are in the flesh, and it's like crazy all the gashes and gnashes, and it's awesome.
Now, do you think he's just seeing the heart, like the heart is now sort of possessing his mind and he's seeing it as beating, or is it actually beating again?
No, I think that, it's funny you bring that up, because I kind of did go in this little rabbit hole of reading about what other people thought, and this idea of like when when Jason has switched bodies and you see him in a mirror and like that, they see Jason. You know what I mean? The people inhabited,
Yes,
but it's
yes.
not just the people who are inhabited. Later on, when you see him attacking his sister and some of the other people in the house, you see that they see Jason in the mirror too.
And isn't that similar to like some of the arguments and discussions we've had in the Nightmare on Elm Street films about
what are they seeing?
who's perceiving reality in what way, and who's connected to each other in those perceptions?
So I do think in this film, anyway, like it's all physical manifestations, not necessarily just things in their mind. You know what I mean? I do think.
This film is also a really good example, it just occurred to me, of that question we've asked numerous times over the other seasons of Haddonfield Radio. Can you take the iconography away from one of these characters or take them out of their like original story location and create new ideas? Well, this is Jason.
Yeah.
He's not wearing a hockey mask.
Right.
He's not Kane Hodder under makeup, but it's still the character of Jason who's committing these murders. But because he looks like this 60-year-old black medical examiner, it doesn't sit right with the audience.
Right. But it's essential to the story that he's telling, of course.
Because we naturally want to see that iconography we've been invested in all along.
I can get how it's like it would turn people off. Like, right now you're probably like, wait, what? Or we're not gonna get Jason back.
It is Jason.
Yeah, of course. They're trying to tell you. I mean, Adam Marcus says basically like Jason is Hell's assassin. Like that's
Is that what he said?
Yeah. Like,
I love that.
And that's why he's on these. He just kills, and he has all these souls that he's collecting, for hell. And that's what we saw jumping from one body to the other a minute ago. But as the entity that is Jason, the demon, whatever it is, takes over this body more and more, the human body can't. It breaks down. It can't keep up with it. Whatever reason, the reason why it likes Jason is Jason can handle this thing a little bit more. And Jason is messed up, especially in this one.
Well, he can
They're
endure.
giving him more of like an elephant man almost head and stuff.
Oh my God,
and he's
love that.
enduring it longer and longer.
He's like the perfect physical specimen to hold this demonic energy because his entropy rate is so low as a slasher character that just lives through everything.
And possibly because of, if you want to get into the whole Necronomicon things,
Yes.
it was used on Jason in whatever way, whether it was his mom or something. They're implying that it's part of his story. So he's not just strong because of natural reasons. He's also strong because of his resurrection or whatever it is through the Necronomicon.
I just want to say that effect we saw where the man's face is pushed down through the grate, incredible looking.
It is good.
And this is one of the
effects
first.
are pretty gnarly in this.
This is one of the first Friday films that really has lasting effects that made it past the MPAA.
Yeah.
And they were created by one of the greatest effects houses ever, which is KNB, Robert Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Howard Berger. And they do really, really sharp and fun work within the confines of this film. Don't you think?
I do. This news report's actually, there's a lot of information in here. This is where we hear about...
Oh, it's such an exposition dump.
Right, yeah. This is where you hear about Elias.
But it's good. It's compelling.
But you also are being told that they're finding a trail of bodies from, where this coroner is at the FBI place back to Crystal Lake. Like, you can see how he's making his way back,
Going back just a second, we were talking about that demon.
Yeah.
Doesn't that also sort of remind you of, I had to think in my mind for a second of which chapter in the Nightmare series. I think it was a New Nightmare where you realize that it's like a Freddy demon or a demon taking on Freddy's appearance.
Yes.
It's an interesting connection between that film and this film in these depictions of these, parallel depictions of these characters. Don't you think?
Yeah.
That they're actually got this strange demonic figure that's ultimately emerges and you see in physical...
One of the cooler ideas that Adam Marcus.
Adam Scott.
Well, I don't know where that just came from.
Are you watching that show Severance?
No.
Anyway, go ahead.
So Adam Marcus talks about that if he could have, what was supposed to sort of happen, and maybe this would have made people feel better about there being not as much Jason. This is some great dialogue.
Oh
Sometimes
my
it's
God.
hard to just
This
go
might
on
be the
about
most
this.
iconic dialogue
Yeah,
from this
I'm
entire
gonna make a note
movie.
to go back to that thing because you got to talk about the stuff that he's.
But you said it so perfectly earlier. What sells the camp is that he's playing it so straight.
Oh yeah, and okay, so the storyline that was filmed and cut. Or I don't think you see the events, but at least he must be talking about him at some point.
About this character's past?
Yeah, yes.
Go ahead.
So later in the movie, you'll hear when they're in the Voorhees house, he says to Jason right before he started killed, he's like, "Hey, you son of a bitch, do you remember me?" And what he's referring to is that the idea was that when he was a teenager, him and his girlfriend were at Crystal Lake. They're in a canoe on the lake, and Jason jumps up out of the water and takes his girlfriend down into the lake and kills her.
Classic
right?
Jason.
And so ever since then, he's devoted his life to learning about Jason, taking down other bad people,
Yep.
but he's just become this guy, this bounty hunter, and so that was a whole big storyline.
And you're
that
not
would have
sure,
been cool.
Did you don't know if they filmed anything?
They did film parts of this movie that explain that. I don't know if you actually ever saw
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
the event, but at least he explains it at some point to somebody or something like that.
Two things Jason
so-
does better than any other slasher character is Kool-Aid manning himself through a door and jumping up out of the water and grabbing your girlfriend and pulling her down with him.
They even had it in that brand new trailer for the Angry Orchard.
That's right. Yes.
Short film that's coming out. The new Jason universe.
To any
stuff.
of you that are listening to this, past, present, or future, if you have a girlfriend, don't take her out on a romantic boating exposition to Crystal Lake. That's just asking for trouble.
And here we have Buck Rogers' main squeeze, Aaron Gray.
And the two Jason masks as well.
Well, it was interesting. So Adam Marcus
Quote, unquote.
talks about, like, he wanted to go to Crystal Lake and show what a town, that there were people that lived here and had to sort of had lives in this town where all this killing has happened and whatnot. And it's just
The hamburger is also Jason's mask.
It's just part. The whole thing is themed.
Yeah,
when
I love it.
Duke orders his food, he orders like Jason fingers and stuff.
But that's one of the elements of this film that I think really works like gangbusters for me.
Yeah.
It feels like it exists within the reality of the film, but it's also made specifically to sort of tickle the audience.
Sure.
So it just works perfectly.
A lot of the dialogue with this family that runs the diner there was ad lib.
And that
they're very
actress
funny.
that you just saw there in the kitchen making the Jason Mask hamburger, she actually ended up in the Eli Roth film Thanksgiving. Anyway.
I know who you are.
I'm gonna kill Jason.
Great.
I need you to help me.
Great dialogue. I love that.
She's like, "Can I take your order? Hi, I'm Creighton Duke. I'm going to kill Jason Voorhees."
Yeah.
He's in another one of these situations in these movies where townspeople don't tend to really understand, and I'm not speaking to her, the character, but this idea that townspeople never seem to know the history of their own towns in these movies.
Yeah.
Like they go and do the stupidest things as though they don't know that Jason has killed thousands of times before.
Well, they know about Jason
No,
here, but I
not
don't.
here.
What
but
I'm
just in
what I'm
this
curious
is
about
refreshing because of that.
is, does she know that she's Jason's sister?
He's thinking it over.
That's what I'm confused
Yeah, I can't
about.
remember.
If it's ever definitively said whether she understands that or not.
Yeah.
Your girlfriend next.
And supposedly there was a lot more filmed with this chief too. He's kind of a great over the top character. And if you look at his patch, it says Cunningham County, another reference to Sean S. Cunningham.
Yep. I like that Sean S. Cunningham must have insisted on some sort of tribute to himself on a film he's producing.
There's a lot of
I kind of
stuff,
like that. That sounds very Sean S. Cunningham to me.
Hey, why not?
I love Sean S.
Well,
Cunningham.
so
Come on. I love him.
Some of the reason why this film got, he gave it to Adam was
Look at how perfectly you see John D. LeMay, by the way he's perfectly, you see him in the background
Yes.
without seeing him, so to speak.
I will say, so I do love the cinematography in this movie. I think it's really, really good. My nitpick is that I think this movie is kind of lit poorly.
it looks like it's lit for television.
Some weird choices in my head, but
That right there that we're watching right now is actually, ironically enough, a really nice camera move.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. The lighting is off throughout. Sometimes it's just way too dark.
It can be too dark.
That
It
could
also
be a color grading issue, maybe but I don't know.
No, I think because in general it's dark. Like here,
Yeah.
it's weird. It's like the only light they have in the diner is coming from their windows, but they only have the blinds half done. It's very weird.
Now let me throw something at you.
Yeah.
Think about this. John LeMay's character is obviously not connected to the character he was playing in the Friday the 13th TV series,
But
right?
there's a fun fact that he was in the TV series.
But hold on, let's get to that. But what I think is so speculatively interesting is what if they had just used that character that he
Right.
plays, that's a very similar character to Creighton Duke in a lot of ways, in this expert of the occult, and brought that character into the mainline narrative to ostensibly serve that same purpose that Creighton Duke serves. As this Jason expert who is now hunting the kind of the sort of catalyst of this curse that has affected all these other things that the television show covers. Instead, you bring the actor over from a canonically connected TV show and
Yes.
give him a completely different character?
It's an odd choice.
Or the actor, I mean, and give him a different character?
It's an odd choice. That street sign we just saw, by the way, was the evidence for it being in Connecticut. You see, like Westport and stuff was
think
right near.
Wilton.
What I'm also confused about with this character is how old is he supposed to be?
Well, he's one of the traditional
Is he-
1980s and 1990s 35-year-old high school students.
Is it supposed to be high school?
He's
just 'cause
wearing a freaking Letterman's jacket.
Yeah, but is that
What is he dating a high school
What do you-
senior?
But then
a
look at-
male high school senior?
But the girl that
Nothing wrong with that.
The girl that his ex-girlfriend that comes back with the baby, she is clearly not in high school. I mean, she's off dating a news reporter that's a.
Okay, I've got a quick
So
theory.
I think he's just wearing his. It's like the local guy who can't let go of like.
Or-
he's just wearing his high school coat
Or
still. I don't know.
He's one step ahead of the game, and he knows that is the exact type of. Again, I've used this word about 30 times this episode, but the exact type of iconography that would attract Jason. Because
Well, if he
Jason,
was, but,
right?
yeah.
Because it makes him look like a teenager and associated with
yeah.
like a camp counselor or something
Yeah.
like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm reaching. I'm
I think
definitely
he's supposed
reaching.
to be older than high school and just a dude who's still wearing his coat and staying
Still
in town.
stuck. Yeah, I agree.
So this whole scene
That is probably what it is.
This whole scene with the hitchhikers was added after at the insistence of the studio. They wanted there to be a few more really impactful kills,
Like traditional Friday the
that were
13th
done a little
kills.
more traditionally.
Yep.
But Adam Marcus, if you watch the scene play out, what he and you know, he said this a lot. This isn't like new information, but that, you know, the scene, he refused to do the old just because teenagers are going and having sex, they will die. But what he will do, if you watch, is because they decide to not use the condom, he will say, not having safe sex will get you killed. You know, he wanted it to be a little bit of a message there. And supposedly at the time, some of the better reviews that came out from like the New York Times and stuff called this sort of a return to morality within the horror genre because of certain decisions like that he made, and the fact that like you see a male nude here and he wasn't all one-sided like the others. He's very much about being inclusive and representing both things, and it shouldn't, you know, he pieced together that the main, you know, it's thought that the main audience for these movies are like young males, but there's actually a bigger audience of young females that go and see these movies, and they go and see them in packs, and you know, so he felt like he needed to represent both sides in terms of the nudity, or you know, does sex equal death? You know, he tried to put a little bit of his own spin and message on it. And,
I have to say, you know, one of the things that I found most entertaining about researching this film was watching, and I would get into watching into like rabbit holes of interviews with Adam Marcus. He's so well spoken and entertaining to listen to, and he has very, you can tell, long held emotional thoughts and feelings still about his connection to this franchise.
Oh, yeah,
and yet
you know.
he represents a lot of the problems that plagued almost all of the directors that were attached to these films over the years.
Right.
And the struggles, I should say.
I don't want to knock, this is not knocking Adam Marcus. What I'm knocking here is maybe the decisions by producers. I understand that money is always a factor. And obviously the more well-known a director you get it's going to be more expensive. But you have to wonder if every once in a while, if they didn't pony up for a better director, that maybe these films would have done better instead of keep declining. It's almost like they decline and they're just going, oh, well, we just have to go cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But unfortunately, and there was a little nepotism here. You got to say it, with Cunningham being a close friend to Marcus, and he kind of owed Marcus. Marcus made wrote a film,
My Boyfriend's
My
Back.
Boyfriend's Back,
Yep.
which was originally Johnny
It's
Zombie.
actually a really good movie.
Yeah.
It's like a cult classic, actually.
But I think he kind of sold the rights to.
And it came out this very year.
I didn't realize it was the same year.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really was, kind of very, Adam Marcus, very dissatisfied with the movie. Sean Cunningham bought sort of the rights to it and kind of told me, I'm going to shop this around and we're going to get this made.
Yeah, he peddled it.
And he got a really good money-wise deal to sell it to Disney. But Disney did not want a first-time director to helm it, and they cut Adam out of it. And he was kind of like, well, what the heck, man? Like, well, that was my movie, So I think Cunningham had to make it up to him. And this was his, supposedly, according to Marcus, what he says is like, you can write and direct this next Friday the 13th movie, but yeah, just take the damn hockey mask out of it. But
I've heard Sean Cunningham in a more recent sense, and of course for our listeners in the future, Joe and I are recording this here in July of 2025, and so in a more recent sense, in the perspective of us. Mm-hmm. Sean S. Cunningham seems to refute that he ever said anything like that. But I have to admit, I kind of have to believe Adam Marcus because he's so vehement about that point. Yeah. And it actually makes sense motivationally.
Well, he says also, like, Adam Marcus says, I didn't have that kind of creative control. He's like, I was a first-time director. I did what they asked. I mean, he goes, he had his own ideas, but he couldn't just go and say, hey, by the way, I'm not going to use Jason in my Friday the 13th. He was like that. I didn't have that type of authority. It had to. Of course, it came from Sean.
And especially considering Cunningham didn't buy the franchise from Paramount. All Cunningham bought was 3 things, and it was 3 names: Jason Voorhees, Crystal Lake / Camp Crystal Lake, and Pamela Voorhees.
Right.
And those were the main strategic elements that he could, again, peddle over to Robert Shea and New Line Cinema, wherein they could apply some of that Nightmare on Elm Street capital to try to reinvent those elements to create a new series that would move forward that might entertain the notion of connecting these 2 characters of Freddy and Jason.
What would have been an interesting connection in this movie to the original 8, if they had bought the rights to everything. The main lead character there that John LeMay plays, Stephen Freeman, is Tommy Jarvis. That was supposed to be Tommy Jarvis.
And all he basically changed was the character's name.
Yeah.
So this is
because he realized they didn't have the rights. They couldn't use it because Sean hadn't bought the rights to Tommy Jarvis.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because I love kind of thinking of this film in an alternate way where you look at that John LeMay character as Tommy Jarvis in everything but name.
It was supposed to be the same backstory. He got a girl pregnant. His life is kind of gone.
You can totally see it. Yeah. I mean, it works.
Yeah.
And it further kind of,
Well, it would have added to this guy the idea that he had a history with Jason. Like he'd be more connected to Jason.
Oh, it's just it's really sad they couldn't get that because oh wow, that would have been awesome.
And I have to admit, this is
really heartbreaking.
This is one of the probably one of my top favorite Jason, quote unquote, Jason kills. This girl getting ripped in half is.
A lot of people actually
brutal.
say that might be the greatest and most vicious kill in the whole series. Thus
it really
far,
is
up until the 9th film.
It's pretty gruesome, and I guess we should also then point out that this was the only or first Friday
I love that he steps on the condom too, the condom wrapper.
where they went. Yeah, and Adam Marcus says every time this is shown in theaters, the crowd goes nuts when he steps on the condom.
And it's also a brutal weapon that he uses here. It's like a signpost of some kind, and it looks absolutely gnarly.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
And isn't it so rewarding?
And you think it's done, but no, we're going to go one more. Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
It's so rewarding
It's
to
so
actually
good.
see the violence.
So that's what I'm saying. So this was the first Friday where they went into the making of the film knowing that they were going to make 2 cuts. That the MPAA wasn't going to let them do all this stuff. So the idea from the beginning with New Line was that there would be a theatrical cut, and then when it comes out on video, they would also have the unrated cut. So we're watching the unrated cut. I'm sure that effect was not left in the theatrical.
So you don't
cut.
think that would have been in the theatrical cut?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
There's like 3 full minutes in this that aren't in the theatrical cut, and it's all around the effects basically. And I love that. It's that they finally kind of figured out a way to do this where they know they're going to get nailed by the MPAA, but the studio recognizes the value. New Line recognizes that there's value to having that unrated cut, and they put it out when this thing gets released.
No, it's a
on
very
video,
smart
right?
move. It's a very prescient and smart move.
Yeah.
Hey, do us a favor, guys. If you've listened to the episode to this point, do us a favor and comment with the axe emoji. How about that?
There you go.
Give us the axe emoji if you've gotten this far into the episode. And if you have done that, we frickin' love you.
Another fun fact was that Adam Marcus did
Fun fact.
all of Jason's vocals, emoting when you hear him in the beginning and the
Which
end.
were kind of controversial.
Yeah,
But
you
go
can
ahead.
hear him a lot. There's a lot of groaning, moaning, and then obviously when he's in these bodies, if you have to, I don't know if you can say it. That's Jason when the guy talks and stuff, but.
So wait a minute. Yeah, I was thinking about this.
Or is that some of the
Or
hosts?
is he just puppeteering the host
Right,
body?
that's what I don't-
Like, does Jason know how to speak or to literally converse? Like, if
Or is it
Jason
just because he's in a more developed human body?
and utilizing that mind?
That
in a
mind
way?
and the mouth, like everything isn't fucked up on.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
no. But I think it bears like a little bit of consideration because it's kind of a fundamentally fascinating upgrade if it is Jason more like puppeteering the body and using his own choice of language, in other words.
Or is it more that there's a demon and the demon puppeteers Jason or everybody?
So
you know
wait,
what I mean?
So you have a demon puppeteering a slasher
Yeah.
who's puppeteering a medical examiner, and we're trying to figure out which one of them is talking. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah.
In a handbasket.
Yeah, there's a at least I can give him credit for putting a lot of thought into what he was doing.
Well, it's
it's
just like what we just were talking about, even though we're talking about it in a funny way. It's this layering upon layering upon layering of ideas that almost becomes sort of confusing and jumble.
And there it is, the famous
Oh my
misspelled
God,
Voorhees
it's so
sign.
painful to look at.
And it's interesting that now there's also this idea of a Voorhees house.
Which, again, I tie to the notion of like the Myers house.
Sure.
Only this is like a whole different level of S&M going on in this house.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, let's just say it. I mean, this movie is known as one of the more homoerotic films out there. And Adam Marcus, will swear up and down when he's asked about this. Why does he have his mustache shaved? And he says it is because he knew back then that everyone would be asking him why the mustache gets shaved. There's no bigger reason than
Oh my God.
than he just knew it would be weird and people would always be asking him about it forever. And the idea
But
that
as an action committed by Jason Voorhees,
he doesn't want to feel a man's mustache against his mouth as the demon is transferring. I don't know. He's cleaning it.
do you know what
I don't know.
Hold on. Shaving the skin is one thing. Using a straight razor to take a full mustache off, Oh, that would
So
hurt.
where did this guy get shaving cream and a razor? Anyway,
Oh,
never mind.
It's one of Jason's
But-
in Jason's utility belt.
Yeah,
He just had it. His
yeah.
Batman utility belt.
But yeah, weird scene for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. At least he didn't have to do the soul transfer like human centipede style.
So anyways, if I ever suddenly wake up strapped down and you're ready to shave my mustache, I'm going to be freaked out.
You should not have given me that idea. You should not.
Okay,
have
but
done
see what I
that.
mean? This girl is not like she's in high school.
Also, why are all
Anyway.
these women constantly wearing baseball hats?
Yeah, I
You ever,
don't know.
isn't
Yeah.
that weird? Why is everyone wearing these baseball hats?
Production
I was
or
trying
costume
to
designer
figure
really.
out what the significance maybe of the numbers on the hats, and other than 89, I mean that's Jason Takes Manhattan, but other than that, I don't see any significance. I even like added the numbers together, and what is it, 17? I don't see what that significance is either.
There was supposedly a comic book, or I don't say supposedly, I think it is out there. There's a comic book that bridged the gap between part 8 and this.
Yeah, it was from Topps.
And
It was
yeah.
released by Topps, the baseball card company.
You know, after I guess the toxic waste New York City sewer incident, he just walks his way back to Crystal Lake. But it also explains why the FBI has a task force, you know, looking at him and everything. So
I wonder if the comic book illustrates, like canonically again, how he physically reformed himself in order to walk back to Camp Crystal Lake
Yeah.
into that Jason form you just saw in the mirror. Right?
yeah, I guess
Because he was
It just
completely
depends-
deteriorated
the-
by that toxic waste.
The one thing that I would love if there's a listener who maybe knows more definitively is whether or not it has been more clearly stated if this movie is a sequel to part 1 or part 1 through 7. Does it include part? You know, some of that really matters in terms of when you're thinking about
Yeah, oh, I agree.
where's Jason coming from here?
I think it's definitely a negative that it's unclear. I think it would be great if maybe it isn't unclear. It's just unclear to you and I.
Yeah.
I would love also if a listener out there could kind of clear that up for
Well,
us.
see, I have it like when I was researching about the comic book. That's where I read that even though the comic book explains these things, that Adam Marcus and Cunningham has stated that it's just a follow up to the original, and mostly ignoring everything from part 2 to part 8. But then I saw a different interview where Marcus says no, it was they just ignored part 8. So it might depend what era you're interviewing these guys and how much they remember too. And coming up is a very Halloween, I believe, homage in a way. The guy goes out the balcony, the window. Then he looks back. We look back out the window, and the body's gone, and all that. Or maybe it's not.
That's more than an
Coming
homage.
up. Yeah. Maybe it's in the later
that-
fight, but it's with this guy. I mean, it's literally
That
right out of
either has-
Halloween, right?
Look, if that's Adam Marcus just literally paying direct tribute to Halloween, that's one thing. But if it was supposed to be an homage, it's too on the nose. It's exactly the same
Right here.
thing.
Yeah. So this is it. Yeah.
But again, it's another tie. It's almost like this movie is trying desperately and succeeding in many respects in tying the Friday franchise out into a bunch of other different directions and franchises.
Right.
So it very well may be a direct kind of homage to Halloween because it's supposed to be. And I would assume.
Right. I mean, a lot of movies, that's what you do. You kind of you borrow, like you look at other movies, and it's a classic horror movie thing. You
Yeah.
think you killed the guy, and then you look back and they're gone. This was just done very, whether on purpose or not, very much like Halloween did theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And this is the classic, the old like, oh, I was just helping her, but I'm covered in blood, so they just arrest the wrong guy.
Yeah, Punchy the sheriff shows up at the very, a little too late, but thanks, Punchy, Sheriff Punchy,
Either the cops are dullards and don't know what the hell's going on, or
which is
they're
a tradition in slasher films.
or they're the over the top,
Yep.
gruff guy who's
Yep.
just ready to shoot everybody or
In
arrest
slasher
everybody.
films, there's no middle ground. You're either the world's greatest cop or you're the world's worst cop. It's going to be one or the other if you're in one of these realities.
And then, of course, he's got a buddy in the police station. A little convenient,
Did you see the homoeroticism in the staging of that
He
sequence?
turned around.
He turns around, placing his butt directly open and accessible to his friend. His friend begins to step forward as though he's going to embrace the moment. It's a homoerotic red herring, if you will.
Yeah.
I wonder if Adam Marcus,
Well, they do. Don't drop the soap in jail.
yeah, especially around Jason.
Well, he's about to be put in a cell next to Duke, who just starts snapping his fingers, which we can get into when we see
Oh,
it.
God. You know what? I want to say, just thought, maybe think of something. You know what movie has the greatest finger snapping of all time, in my opinion? Can you
What?
guess?
I not off the top of my
Darkman.
head. Oh, yeah.
I want the pink balloon. That's Sam Raimi, too.
Sam Raimi, yeah.
A lot of connections to Sam Raimi in my mind today.
So, back to him borrowing the Necronomicon
No, I
while they
want
were
the
filming
pink
part
bunny
2.
or bear.
So Sam Raimi didn't direct Evil Dead Part 2, right? He produced
he
it?
directed Evil Dead 2. He directed Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 1. He
Maybe
directed all
maybe
three
it
of
was a
them.
producer. I had read that somebody involved Tom Sullivan.
He did the effects, and
okay.
he created the Necronomicon.
So he was really mad that was taken without granting permission.
Well, that's
and he
his,
said he
like-
would never again loan out props after Raimi gave them the Necronomicon for this.
Well, in terms of his legacy as an effects creator,
Yeah.
the Necronomicon Ex Mortis is Sullivan's like magnum opus.
Right.
And he's very, fairly enough, he's very possessive of it and its use.
Yeah.
And that's why even in the later Evil Dead movies that have come out in the last subsequent couple of years, it's not the original Necronomicon. Now in the I guess in the canon of in the lore of those films, there's like
There's
three
a few
books.
of them, right? Yeah.
And so, like Evil Dead Rise, what was the last one we saw too? Do you remember the title? Was it Evil Dead Burn or
Yeah.
Evil Dead Rise, and then the Evil Dead remake? Evil Dead Burn is being made right now.
I'd say Evil Dead Rise was, I thought, the
Each
last
one
one
of
I
those
saw.
films is like the story of one of the three books.
Yeah. I know this guy on the right too. I've been trying to remember. It's like he's from
Probably
a show
from all
or
the gay
something.
porn that you watch. That could be it.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. It's been a long day.
the cop that just could care less, drinking her coffee.
She sort of looks like Jessica Lange. Did you notice
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I can see that.
Like King Kong 1970 whatever era Jessica Lange.
Laurie Holden from
Walking Dead,
She
yes.
she was one of the early considerations for that role.
But didn't she have a relationship with Adam Marcus? Not a relationship, but like a connection to or Cunningham?
Laurie Holden.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not
Because
saying
I think she
didn't,
was
but-
somehow like a favored actor that they wanted for that role. I thought it was really interesting that seeing her come up in the history of this film. Because I probably mentioned before, I'm a gigantic Walking Dead fan, whether
Yeah.
it's comics or the show, massive fan. And I only mean the original show, The Walking Dead. The spin-offs, What do you think, no?
I think that baby's about to choke on the necklace. It was just totally swallowing, but that's okay. There's also, I guess, some inconsistencies with the baby. If you watch throughout the film, it has
They probably use
different
7
amounts
babies.
of hair. Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
it's very bald.
Oh,
and
that's right.
Sometimes it has a lot of hair.
And sometimes it's from like moment to moment. Like the baby's bald and the baby's got this
Yeah.
bushy head of
Yeah.
hair.
And that guy playing the news reporter, he's just got the sunken eye, evil look thing down. I feel like I've seen him in things from that era. All,
Yeah.
all
He's got
like
one
this.
of those faces for sure.
Again, all of Duke's scenes are pretty amazing. If just to listen to Stephen Williams deliver.
Is the actor that plays the medical examiner, is that Stephen Culp?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Well, Stephen Williams and Stephen Culp.
Yeah, Stephen
these
Culp.
two like iconic television and film actors of that era, they both just bring their complete A game
yeah.
to this movie. And when I was catching up with this movie, I had forgotten how much Stephen Culp is in this film as Jason, essentially.
Yeah.
And I hope as his life went on that he held that as a proud part of his resume, that he's one of the actors that's portrayed Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
Because he absolutely could have claimed that.
And I believe he's the only one of the bodies he goes into that speaks at some point. So he's the one that
So
also.
it's a great distinction.
I don't know. And again, this scene falls under that, like, kind of homoerotic kind of
Yep.
weird thing going on here. Not that it's weird to be homoerotic.
You're really stuck
oh
on
man,
this.
I'm gonna get myself. But people point out like, why? What is the whole holding his hand and breaking his fingers right before
Like
you're
how-
about to send this guy out to help fight Jason?
Yeah, how is this supposed to like be a what's the word, like when
An
something,
asset to the
Yeah.
to their play here. You're damaging. And if you watch the movie, it's kind of impossible for this guy to be swinging the axes and shooting guns and everything he's doing with that hand with breaking how many fingers he has broken.
Let me hit you with this. I
Yeah.
like the idea of Jason Voorhees entering Creighton Duke's body.
That would have been interesting,
Right?
huh?
I almost was kept waiting for that to happen because I hadn't seen this particular entry in the Friday franchise in many years. I was like, wait a minute, did that happen in this film? I was kind of hoping it would.
What's weird is how happy Duke got right after he broke his fingers. If you watch him, he kind of looks to the side and he's all smiley,
Well-
like, hell yeah.
I think it's because in the depictions of look at Loomis, it almost takes you becoming a monster, sort of to hunt one of these monsters. You have to almost be as open to becoming as psychotic as your prey.
He's not going to kill people, but he wants to.
Look at Loomis by Halloween 6, Halloween 5.
It's scary.
He's demented.
Yeah.
In Halloween 5, he's literally psychologically torturing a traumatized little girl for the entire runtime of the movie. And don't get me started on 6. He's like a nut. He's got runes appearing on and off his skin. He's like a nut. And I think you have to sort of become a nut to kind of be in the reality of one of these slasher characters. Have you ever broken a finger?
Yeah.
I gotta say, I would rather break
Watch
an
this.
arm than a finger.
Let's see
Oh
that-
my
that
God.
pinky, it won't go flat.
Show them.
I can't do. You have to see it on the table, but yeah, it doesn't go flat anymore. Because anyway,
Well, how did you break that?
playing like flag football.
Oh my God, that's the exact same way I broke my finger when I broke my finger.
Yeah, sorry.
When you hold the ball and the kicker kicks it?
Yeah.
Well, he kicked it, and when I lifted my hand up again, my finger was over here. It was bent completely backwards. The skin was broken.
Yeah.
You know when you cut yourself so deep that it doesn't even bleed?
Yeah.
It bent
yeah.
my
Oh
finger
yeah.
all
You
the
look.
way
You're like, oh, it's
back.
not bad, and then it starts bleeding. Yeah.
I quickly took my finger and tried to push it back into place.
I-
I had to go right to the hospital. A lot of fun.
I barely played sports in my life, and every time I would try, something like that would happen. So that's why I started watching so many movies in my life.
Yeah. Joe just decided to sit it out.
I was like, listen, this isn't worth it anymore.
I took a couple grievous injuries playing high school and childhood sports.
Yeah.
I really, I'll have to get into that one of these days. You guys probably don't want to hear that story.
John McTiernan was offered the chance to direct this movie.
Now, who directed Predator, Die Hard?
But
I mean, what are these people out of their minds?
He turned it down to go do Last Action Hero.
I mean, why would they even think they could get John McTiernan? You would have to pay a lot more than whatever they could cut in out of $3
And
million.
I think you said Toby Hooper was also offered the job.
he was?
Yeah.
I would have loved to see that.
Yeah.
Because Toby Hooper was actually very creatively active in the early 90s and late 80s. He was sort of on a roll. So I would have liked to see what kind of energy he would have brought in. And that reminds me of something.
Yeah.
Last episode, I think, or the one before, we were talking about how that, and you could talk about it in the spectrum of this too, that obsessive team up everyone wanted between Freddy and Jason, and actually how strangely mismatched they are.
Yeah.
Imagine a team, not a team up, but a head-to-head Jason Leatherface. That's another one that would be pretty gnarly, don't you think?
Yeah. This film also, when you see it, when you see the Voorhees house, there's like this, old broken down kids jungle gym thing in there. That is the same jungle gym from the movie The Birds. So if you want to throw in the Hitchcock universe,
The Birds?
yeah, he's Adam Marcus is a huge Hitchcock fan, and by default, like De Palma, and he's
Wow.
yeah. And
I wonder how he would have even.
I think it was probably must have been at the studios, like it must have still been on the
yeah.
lots or something,
Yeah.
because that's that's a weird one. Not weird, but going way out of your way for something. They must have just happened to have access to it being in the movie.
Had you read anywhere about Adam Marcus talking about Hitchcock or the Birds? Like he really wanted that in there specifically.
Not talking about like that Jungle Gym, but I did see him in interviews talking about this movie, mentioning being a fan of Hitchcock. Definitely, yeah. So.
I really like this group of characters, this diner, these characters.
They're
nailed, all pretty vivid.
He nailed. It's like what is it in part?
I was trying to think of this too.
4, or was it the 4? I can't. Why am I?
Well, which characters are you thinking of?
The mom with the hillbilly son driving the.
Yeah. Was
Tommy
that 3?
Jarvis. It would have been 3, or it would have
Which Tommy
been
Jarvis was it?
the blonde with the glasses
John
when he's in the
Shepherd?
home. Yeah.
Oh, that was 5.
Okay, so I know it's so sad that
Guys, I'm so sorry.
We've been absorbing these so quickly. All right, so yeah,
that was in New Beginning.
So the mom, the hick mom, and the son, like those side characters that are over the top, oblivious, and almost goofy. Like those guys were a little too goofy. These guys.
I think they're really good.
Yeah, it's you got the son when he comes out later, all being goofy. It's kind of perfect.
God,
her lines being the tough mom, and she had lived a lot of stuff. Like when they take the baby in the back, she's supposed to say something like "bring the baby in the back," but instead she is like, "if anyone touches that friggin' ray of sunshine," she really embellished it in this great way.
Until you brought it up, I did not notice or think of that connection between those Part 5 characters. But but you know what? It almost feels like an homage in a way. There's a similar kind of tone to it that's, again, kind of campy and kind of right on the nose that works.
I also have to assume that the people that worked on this movie, not a single one of them ever had a kid, because
my God,
in their right mind just puts a baby in a box that's up on a counter
and then leaves.
Like, that is not a baby that just lays there and does nothing. That baby is going to hurt itself if you walked away like that.
Baby would be crawling after the lady.
Oh my God! It's kind of it's one of those things that I know you just kind of go like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But
this movie would become like the beginning of Lars von Trier's Antichrist. Have you guys ever seen Lars von Trier's Antichrist? You want to see a real horror movie? Watch Lars von Trier's Antichrist. If you're a parent and you can get through the beginning of that movie, I give you credit.
What do you think about The Omen?
The Richard Donner original?
Yeah.
First off, has one of the greatest kills, I think, in movie history, which is the spinning decapitated head with the glass.
Yeah.
I loved The Omen.
The Omen is one of those horror movies that actually like truly freaks me out. This Jungle Gym right here. Oh. That's the one from The Birds. Anyway, yeah, The Omen is it's got a creepy tone in its filmmaking and in the acting, and it's got that baby, like that kid element, where when you get a creepy kid, it's.
I think that of all like the Satanic Panic movies of that era, I think Richard Donner's The Omen, in my opinion, is the classiest of all of them.
Yeah. But I love you can jump forward. Is it part 4 or wherever where Damien's got like the army and
it's David Warner, I think, whose head gets cut off by the glass. But what really sells it again is that spinning.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really brilliant. Wow, what a lot of different genres Richard Donner has done.
I love Richard Donner.
Imagine 3 separate movies. You have Superman, Lethal Weapon, and The Omen. Yeah. 3 completely different movies, all by the same director in very similar amount of years.
Yeah.
Wow. I miss those like journeyman directors of that era that could were technically so proficient they could direct any genre.
Exactly, they were good just directors.
Yes.
He wasn't a horror director or a superhero director. He just, anyway.
That's a dying breed. Like, you still have guys like in this era, like maybe like Martin Campbell or like that, but there's not a lot of them anymore.
I will. That's one of my soapboxes.
James Mangold.
I will continue to say that Richard Donner's Superman the movie, 1978, is one of the most important films of all time.
Like, just objectively, generally speaking?
I think it is it's a masterpiece and made in a way and with thought that just...
You know what? When I watched it a few months ago, because Joe and I were and still are considering doing a project containing that movie, some elements of that movie. And what I was really taken by is how almost... imperfect it is, and it makes it beautiful, like the effects.
I'm not saying it's a perfect movie. I just think it's one of the most important movies.
Yeah, I love
not only in how it was made and who made it, but
it's wonderful
what it did in film, whether you realize it or not. But we can go on
And
that.
we just saw the actual, literal Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
Yep.
And yet there was no like cross politics where, whatever. I think it was like Renaissance Pictures that released the Evil Dead films. They didn't say, well, I guess Sam Raimi loved and wanted to be a part of it, so he just went with it.
Adam Marcus, I think, really had to ride a fine line of doing this sort of under everyone's nose without them noticing and calling a lot of attention to it. It was sort of like, here, I'm just going to put that there. Now you guys fill in the blanks. But he is giving you a lot there, in that one shot, really.
I agree.
And when you talk about the Freddy shot at the end, including that, where you would almost assume that because we know that that the studios wanted to do this Freddy versus Jason thing, you would kind of assume it came from that or stemmed from that.
Yeah.
But it actually was it was an idea that Adam Marcus had. He said he was, again, he's low on the totem pole. He was not in on the plans to be making a Freddy versus Jason movie. He just realized one day, oh my God, I'm working for New Line. New Line owns Freddy. And he went to the execs and said, this is what I want to do. And he said it was the quickest yes he's ever gotten. He said, I could hear them high-fiving over the phone,
I bet.
And so, again, just something from Adam Marcus, because he wanted to build that universe that these things were all supposed to exist in. And it wasn't necessarily a studio thing just because they were going to
the forethought that Sean S. Cunningham had about the idea of connecting Freddy and Jason in some sort of either team-up or face-off film was probably actually one of his greatest ideas he's had in his career, becoming the champion of that idea, because up until the David Gordon Green Halloween films, right around this time period, Freddy vs. Jason was one of the biggest blockbuster horror films that you could imagine. I think it made $80 million.
The anticipation after all the stories over the years. And
bringing this incredibly odd, eccentric Asian... This reminds me of RoboCop.
This is so good.
You know the toxic waste?
Yeah, of course.
Guy in RoboCop?
Comes out, help me!
Doesn't it... Don't the effects kind of give you that vibe?
Yeah, it's so good. And
God, K&B just kills it.
And so this is one cool thing. I started bringing this up earlier. Something that Adam Marcus wanted to do, and they just couldn't pull it off with the effects back then, and he's brought up since that, if I could go back digitally, what he wanted to do is, as these people their body is breaking down, and it's because Jason that's in there is trying to get out, and as their bodies would be breaking down, you would start to see more and more the outline of the hockey mask pushing.
This reminds me of Hellraiser.
The hockey mask would be pushing through the skin more and more, and you would see it start to appear in them as their bodies break down, and he comes out. That would have been, I think, really cool, and maybe just a little bit enough more Jason that might have helped people accept it a little bit more, if you did constantly see that the bodies and habit kind of start to be turning into him a little bit.
God, yeah, I love that.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I think that would be very cool. Would have
and
been.
the only reason he could fully turn back into his regular form is because he eventually gets to a Voorhees, DNA. So,
man, a lot of kind of flesh in this movie, huh?
Yeah.
A lot of naked flesh. Because they kind of got away from that in some of the later Paramount sequels,
Yeah,
or they at least toned it down.
But Adam keeps using it different. He's not always being this girl's crying in the shower. It's not very sexy, right?
No, it's not a turn on.
So
not very titillating.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think he understood what sort of needed to be there at times, but he just didn't want to do the cliche thing, every time. Some classic horror shots, the stairwell lit with the shadows.
But see how dark
it is. Dark. It's a little too dark. Yeah.
It's exactly. I can see what they were going for, but it's just the composition of the lighting is just not enough. It's just, and maybe they were going for that kind of Gordon Willis-y underlit look, but I don't think it serves the function of the scene the way they might have intended.
There's also a lot of cut scenes from this that you can watch. There's that Scream Factory box set, and they have the cut scenes in there with commentary if you want.
Were there anything stand out to you?
Nothing crazy. A lot of them were put back in. There was the TV version that eventually would hit, and they put some of those scenes back for the TV version. It's just little exposition stuff, nothing too crazy, because the unrated version's already got all the extended gore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and everything.
Yep.
These were just little pieces of characterization that were fleshed out a little bit more. But it's all there. It's a great box set. There's a couple different commentaries, some great like 2008-ish interviews with Adam Marcus and Kane Hodder.
I can't wait to see that upcoming documentary about the behind-the-scenes struggles of Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah.
And I know it's made almost like a sequel, in fact, to the one about Richard Stanley working on The Island of Dr. Moreau. It looks like even the packaging, the poster, looks like they're trying to, maybe it's made by the same company, wouldn't surprise me, but that's also an incredible documentary.
John LeMay's character, Steve, in this, like, he's constantly just showing up in the nick of time. You notice that? Like, everybody comes busting through a door. I know, I get it. He's
but
chasing
if it was Tommy
Jason.
Jarvis, it would make so much more sense.
He's going after, but it's just like it keeps happening.
I just keep telling myself it's Tommy Jarvis.
And I love in sometimes these like horror movies where they do that, where there's just not enough time to explain to the girl why he's grabbing her and kidnapping her, and like, just shut up and do what I say.
I love that all these actors, it just occurs to me, they get to claim I portrayed Jason Voorhees in one of the movies.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of these actors that get to host Jasons in their characters,
A very liberal playing of Jason. But yeah, technically, yeah.
I got another Halloween connection for you, by the way.
All right.
Another one of the incredibly talented effects artists that worked on this particular entry. I'm going to throw the name and see if you remember where it's from. Wayne Toth.
Oh, God, yeah.
Created the mask, the Michael Myers mask for the Rob Zombie movies.
I was going to say for the later one, right?
Yeah. And he's really built a really strong resume for himself just as an effects artist over the years. Mm-hmm. This is one of the early projects that he worked on. He was, I bet you anything he was probably working for K&B, and I'm guessing. But he probably was part of that team.
I mean, a lot of people went through there in the early days of K&B who would go on to be names, have a name for themselves.
Well, one of the things I really respect about Jason Goes to Hell is it brings back that tradition of having the best of the effects houses handle your effects.
Yeah.
And in some of the last, and I'm not poo-pooing on any of the effects from the last couple of films, but they didn't have those rock star effects houses like you got in some of the earlier ones, Savini, Dan Winston. Getting K&B in 1993 had to be a huge get.
Yeah, of course.
Because they had to be the most in-demand team
Top
at that
of their
time.
game at that point, yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
Nicotero, and it's funny how here we are in 2025, and Greg Nicotero is reconnected himself back to the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yep. Curious to see where that will all go.
Very controversially and divisively, as it is historically with everything in the Friday the 13th franchise.
Not feeling it yet, but I'm not willing to write it off either. Right there. So that's Adam Marcus on the left.
Oh yeah, there he is.
Young, shaved Adam Marcus cameo as I think Officer Bish. So
that was Billy Green Bush that played Sheriff Ed Landis.
Mm-hmm.
Without his hat on, he really is another one of these guys from this era that has one of those faces, an actor you've probably seen on 1,000 television shows and movies, right?
Yeah. There was also a cop in there played by Adam Marcus's brother, who is an actor, Kip Marcus.
Wow, this is a family affair.
He was in there as Randy Parker, or maybe he wasn't an officer, but he's in there somewhere. I'm not sure who Randy Parker is in the film, but yeah. And I think Adam Marcus was very young working on this, and like the whole crew, everybody was like under 25.
Oh, wow.
You look at some of the behind-the-scenes footage and photos, everyone on set, the producers, the ADs, everybody walking around with a headset. They look like they're 12 years old.
This film has a very youthful energy, doesn't it?
And that is a little bit of why people were impressed with Adam Marcus and give him the job in the beginning. He even talks about that he had this just amazing amount of energy and enthusiasm to be doing this, and that is half the reason why the movie got made. And he was probably too ambitious. That he'll talk about on his very first day he had listed 48 different setups that he wanted to do in the day, and then by day 3 they're doing like maybe 22. But then
that's pretty extraordinary.
But he said I was willing to learn and listen to people, and he said so by the end of the shoot, there he is again.
Yeah. He's got an actual speaking role.
By the end of the movie, they were doing like 40-something setups a day.
And he does a little stunt.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. And here's the split diopter.
Right? But again, not done quite as well as Spielberg pulls it off.
I think the problem is what they did is placing a fish tank with moving fish.
Yeah. It's interesting because that
fuzzes it out.
When I was doing research, there are people talk about that, and they go, why? They don't understand what the split diopter is, and people are asking, why did Adam Marcus feel the need to blur out the fish tank? What was going on in the fish tank? And so you just that line that you have to be really careful of how you blend when you're doing that thing with the lens. It's tough, and it's a big blur in this one.
I love that move, that little athletic move John LeMay does. He just jumps over his handcuffs.
Yeah, and if you look though, it's a string because the handcuffs are really far apart, more than handcuffs would go.
Also,
you need to nitpick.
If this version of Jason had successfully possessed this woman, would have kind of been cool to see Jason in a woman's body.
Wow, huh? We
Think
haven't
about
seen that.
Now, and also you could have, if you were the writer, you could have then considered, well, would that put him more into his mother's mind in a way?
And what happens if that female gets pregnant?
Oh, Christ, now you're really freaking me out.
Would Jason...
I feel deeply uncomfortable about that question.
Anyway.
But think about that, though. Jason...
Wait. This whole scene, is this a little Terminator 2, too? Like,
well, in the hallway as well.
The whole, taking out the... Or is it the first Terminator? The first one, rather.
They do it, I think, in both of them.
Yeah, that's right. They do.
Because the T-1000 takes out...
It's the hospital.
In the hospital, yeah.
That's what it is.
And then in the mall as well. He's, mowing down security guards and stuff. I'd love to cover the Terminator movies someday.
God.
Now, that would be a fun franchise to cover. What if... That might be a fun trailer park episode someday.
There we go.
Guys, somebody please ask us to do the Terminator movies.
Can we also talk about how many guns are at the diner? Like this, it's like more well stocked than the police station is.
Yeah, they should have just come here first for protection.
You're about to get a crazy shootout in a diner. That's the other thing with this movie. It's got the horror film mold, but then all of a sudden you get this action scene in the diner that's more like a lethal weapon or something, like just this balls to the wall shootout, at the OK Corral, but it's the diner at Crystal Lake. In this kid, again, this is just the perfect classic throwback, funny side character who's clueless. And it always kills me that the people, they are given a weapon and then they encounter the scary person, but they just won't use it.
Yeah.
It's like...
I heard this anecdote, by the way, about Kane Hodder, apparently, when he was filming. There was a little girl on the set, and she was really, really frightened, but not of his Jason costume. She was frightened because she could see his actual burned skin. And he took some time to sort of explain what happened to him and kind of give her that little moment. I thought that was really cool. I feel bad. I didn't mean to say I don't think Kane Hodder is doing a good job in Jason Goes to Hell. I love Kane Hodder, and I love his performances as Jason. But I just think of the performances of Jason, this is just my least favorite.
He also just wasn't given a lot
He wasn't given
to
a
do,
lot, you're right.
as Jason. And,
no, he's in the reflection of a mirror here and there.
In the beginning,
sad.
he's just stomping around and getting blown up.
Yeah, it's sad.
At the end, he has some good fight stuff, but he's just, as much as they were like, well, of course we're going to get Kane Hodder because he knows what to do and everything, it wasn't a huge role. Obviously, Jason is not Jason in this one, you know what I mean?
I think Stephen Culp, actually, in my opinion, does the best job playing Jason in this movie. And I love a lot, again, I love a lot of his character choices, and you could see a lot of the thought the actor put into interpreting Jason through the medical examiner. I just think it's really fun.
If you watch here, the back shot, the guy's wearing goggles, safety goggles that disappear.
Oh, yeah.
You see that? And now they're gone.
The other thing is, like, if you shot him in the head, the heart, the chest, the legs, the arms, what is another bullet going to do?
Yeah.
Like, figure out
I know.
something else.
Well, run. At that point, you run. There's no...
That's freaking sick.
I love it.
But it's so good. They even linger on it a little bit because the effect is so effective.
Yeah. There's a whole fake head they built for that. It was great.
Look, that was a fake head?
Yeah.
I thought that might have been just a prosthetic over the mouth.
No, that whole head was fake.
That looked amazing.
There's a great behind-the-scenes photo of the real actress standing next to it, like making the same face.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was incredibly effective, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great. Yeah, like the lighting, I see what they're trying to go for something clever with the backlight and the smokiness, but it's just a little too dark, a little too...
I think you're being polite. It's a lot too
it's like
dark.
they're going realistic, but we're making a movie here, so you gotta like, you gotta light it unreal in a way.
Classic Jason right here.
Yeah, the head squeeze.
The old classic Jason head squeeze.
Look how much blood is on this guy. It's great.
Well, I noticed in some of his other, like earlier, Jason possessed like a tiny little bald man, and yet he's hurling people across the room, right? So obviously he retains some sort of his supernatural strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it takes me back to the moments where he's using language. And now that I meant to say this earlier, but that sort of reinforces this notion. I think that might actually be Jason speaking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's really weird.
That's what the things I read online and most fans, I think, do consider that to be like the only time he talks. Like,
Yeah.
if you have to say, does Jason ever talk? It would be when he's in the body in this film. Now I can't. It's killing me that I can't think of the moment when he speaks or which character it was. And we've watched this movie like
I can't
10
either.
times in the last month.
Sometimes I start getting loopy with it.
But yes, see again the lighting. It's too.
I see what they were like that
Yeah,
shot.
like, I
I
get
see
what
what he
they're
was
going
going for,
for.
but it's not what they wanted. It's not what they thought they were going to get.
That's cool when you have Batman coming around the
Yeah.
corner. I don't know, but it's a little too artsy for I think this. But
Strangely
anyway.
enough, the Voorhees house is spelled correctly.
Yeah, it's just on that sign.
Yep.
Even in the credits, like when it's spelled right, it's just the sign got.
That's why I think if you knew that mistake was made, maybe you just don't give. Well, you have to give it a close up to establish that it's the frickin' Voorhees house.
I wonder if the house that they're going to use in the new Crystal Lake series has any resemblance to this or ties back to this movie at all.
It's like I would hope and wish that, but I would guess that like all the other past things, nobody gives a shit and nobody carries any of this shit over.
Yeah.
Nobody puts in that like production design forethought.
I also don't know if the Crystal Lake series is supposed to be a complete reboot starting over, or is it just a prequel series to these films?
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm so confused by every element.
Maybe
of
if
that
anybody
TV
out
show.
there knows
I
what the
even
intent
saw-
is behind it,
I
let us
think
know.
they cast like
A young
an adult
Jason.
actor
Oh, young, a young and an adult
to
Jason,
play
I
like
heard, yeah.
so. Originally, I thought they did not have the rights to Jason Voorhees for the television series, but apparently they do. And they were, and some of the insinuation I saw was the idea of the bag-headed Jason you might see.
Yeah.
Which again, it's one of the most
That
frightening
would've been
Jasons.
cool.
But again, all this shit is just speculation. I can't wait till we're
Well,
in the
if they're
future
gonna
and we
do
know.
the old like Smallville thing where you never see him in the Superman suit, they might do the old like
wow.
you won't see him in the hockey mask in the series, but he will be there. Maybe they will do the bag or something else. Or
I think it's the perfect time to put your money where your mouth is, have some balls, and do an interesting redesign. I personally think that I would have respect for that, but you got to pull it off.
well, it'd be cool if they did it.
Give him like a
Well,
new
so
iconic design.
That shot right there with the dagger and the effect, that was the most expensive shot in the whole movie.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, yep. And then so like you were saying in the beginning, this is the dagger from
The Kandarian dagger
from Evil Dead,
Yep.
and it again,
Kanda.
he wanted it to be that dagger, and he told the props department like we can't call it that necessarily, but that's what I want it to be,
You want your baby out of danger. You will end it now.
Now I wonder what could Jason inhabit the baby? What would happen if the demon went inside a baby?
Well, that's what I'm suggesting from a minute ago. Imagine if the baby still retained Jason's strength. That would be freaking awesome.
It would be, but we'd get this weird, like,
That would be
CG
memorable.
baby running around the screen throwing people everywhere.
Again, I wish if I was on this set, I would have said, guys, what if Jason... I would have brought that up just as a thought.
Well, does he get that desperate? Let's say he gets, to the point where, they killed his sister. Now, what if they kill the mother of the baby? His I guess that's his niece. And then what if the only Voorhees DNA left is the baby?
Well, I thought of another possible outcome at the end that could have been the end of this movie. A lot of, like we're talking about, the themes of this baby and birth. Imagine if one of these characters somehow gave birth to a baby Jason at the very end. And you see the baby born, and you see the deformed look that you recognize as Jason. Like, Jason has now been physically reborn through, and it would be even creepier if it was through someone he was blood related to.
It is weird when he gets reborn from, his dead sister's
Yeah.
coochie.
Her coochie.
Which, hey, I gotta say, Erin Gray, by the way, she
What a coochie.
She did not film any of that when she filmed, and she wasn't even aware that was going to happen to her character until she was in the theater, and she feels really violated. She is
I can
angry.
imagine. Yeah.
She said she would not have agreed to that happening to her character, and out of all the movies she's ever done, it's the only scene that she kind of has regret for, wishes that wasn't there. It's just associated with her character. And she's like, she's friends with Sean Cunningham and has forgiven him basically and everything. But she was not into seeing that thing crawl in between the legs of the Jason's sister there.
And yet it feels very much Evil Dead 2 to me. If you think about when the tree is attacking the woman in the forest and it's like crawling up her leg up into her crotch, it kind of has a vibe that's similar to that as well. But yeah, I can understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
As a performer that isn't consulted about the fate of her own character, but why would she be?
It's also, how creepy is it in the Voorhees house that there is a table with these stirrups?
Yeah, a little hard to explain.
Like
that
a
one.
lot of crazy stuff. Like, is it the idea that
Maybe
this
it's 1970s exercise equipment of some kind.
I think it's implying that this is pretty
Oh my
gross.
God, that is so horrific.
And gruesome.
Oh my God.
I kind of wish, I don't mind the idea of Jason being sort of a demon and being and body hopping. I kind of don't like that they put it in a physical form of this little worm thing.
Reminds me of Poltergeist 2 as
I
well.
wish I had kept it a little more like the beams of light switching from person or just realizing he has moved or something like that. But the idea that there's a physical
like a baby xenomorph
thing that you could stab and kill or something that is the demon and that's within there.
I just want to say I've mentioned
there's the crate
there's
from
Fluffy,
Creepshow.
yeah, even with the Julia Carpenter
And
name on it.
then
Orlick's
there's
University.
the university thing.
Yeah.
There's a whole rabbit hole you can go down about.
What?
Oh my God! Within the Stephen King universe, and then how it's appeared in other movies on shirts and stuff.
Oh,
of people.
I did not know
There's
that.
something about that university, yeah. And now it's here,
Cool.
So it all
It just weaves a brighter and broader tapestry. That's all. I love that. I love like stuff like that as a fan.
And so what's crazy to me here is that when he gets reborn, though, that he does come back out like with his clothes and hockey mask and like just dressed the way he was last time he went down. But
it's weird.
There's the Kool-Aid moment for this movie, though, right? Through the floor.
God, it's not a Friday the 13th film if Jason doesn't Kool-Aid man himself through a door, a wall, the floor, the ceiling.
And right there, I'm sure the crowd must have been going nuts to finally get Jason back here. There's where he says, "Remember me." Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, there's also another moment in this, I think earlier on, that's actually a reference to Jaws. That Creighton Duke says something like, "I'll catch him and I'll kill him for this or that," and it's sort of like an homage to Jaws.
Well, and Adam Marcus brings up Jaws all the time in interviews when talking about this.
Cool.
You know how it's a horror
I just remembered
film.
that. Yeah.
It's really a horror film. But I mean, how many things can fall through this floor? But
yeah.
And Kane does. I love one of the aspects I love about Kane's Jason is his breathing.
Yes.
He's got that very.
Well,
You know?
it's part of how, like the way we always have talked about how Robert Englund, when he was doing Freddy, he did that gunslinger pose with the arm hanging down. And I think Kane's silhouette is that rising and falling shoulders of breathing. You know, it's just something he brought to the character that's just so definable as Jason in your mind and in your mind's eye, I should say. Yeah, I agree with you on that, 100%.
When I filmed that little ad with my son for the last film,
yeah.
and I got to be Jason, I tried to make sure to do the breathing when I turned
Well,
around.
it occurred to me, you've actually played Jason more than a lot of the other actors that have played Jason. You've now played Jason at least twice on camera.
It's fun. It's fun throwing all this stuff on. I have to admit, like, now I want to walk around like one Halloween just totally.
I don't know what you guys think, but I personally think Joe makes an excellent Jason Voorhees.
All right, I'm ready. Sign me up, New Line or Paramount or Peacock or whoever owns the rights these days.
I'm on board. Yeah, good luck parsing that out.
Now, can you imagine if this guy was really fighting with all those broken fingers? Like, there's.
And he was just hit in the face with a shovel 7 times.
yeah.
When I was probably like 13 or 14, I got whacked over the head with a shovel, like a metal shovel. Not happy. Not a fun moment for me.
No.
I also had a telephone pole dropped on my head. Explain some things.
The only thing about this, yeah, I know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to gloss by that. But
I love that the people in charge of the care of that legendary,
I know.
Piece of film history, and here's Kane Hodder throwing it over.
That was in what movie? It's weird to me. I don't like Jason's clothes in this movie. I'll say that's the one thing about this design. It's too frumpy-ish looking in a weird way.
And yet,
like he keeps his shirt tucked in and he's got his belt buckled. It's just a little too. I don't know. So those aspects weird me out.
I'm not sure why you need a belt if you're wearing a onesie.
I don't think he's wearing a onesie.
I was going to say, how do your pants fall down if it's connected to your shirt?
So so here's the soles, right? Look, they're all going out one color.
Yep.
And like it's like they're finally free.
Yeah.
But then they're going to come back down another color and go back into him, almost helping the other guy take Jason down. It's like they go up and get turned to the light side. Their color changes, and now they're free and they come back to
like empowered.
Yeah, empowered.
Yeah,
like even here, like he's punching it out of them. Like.
Yeah.
And this whole ending with Jason being dragged down was supposed to be done with like puppets. They had all these miniatures done. See how they go up and now they're coming down.
Oh yeah.
Sharper in another color, more attacky.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if that was the reasoning behind it all, but it's almost like now they're taking the strength away from them.
The cover of the Topps comic book emulates this moment.
Yeah.
This is like. I think this is all really cool. I love these hands.
Yeah.
I love all of this.
So this was all supposed to be like stop motion. They had puppets made of all like him, Jason, and all the demons. There was actually supposed to be this other bigger demon that we saw, but it like it didn't work out. It didn't come out well.
Too bad, because that would have been cool in stop motion. It would have been sort of like the aborted finale of The Thing with the Wilford Brimley alien stop motion.
There's a lot of Thing similarities too, in a way, with the body not knowing who's in who, and
another good body swap horror film from this era, if I was to recommend another one, is called The Borrowers. And it has this great character actor from the 80s and 90s, Tom Towles, in it, who was also in another movie I mentioned earlier, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, with Michael Rooker. Check out The Borrowers if you haven't seen it.
And right there at the very end, all the spirits or souls, they sort of went away, right? They're light and they left and they took Jason down. I don't know. I think it's just supposed to be a subtle, not in your face way of doing the old, he collected souls and then they're free at the end. And it's a very Freddy thing in a way.
It sort of mimics some of those like exorcism themes that were in the last film as well. Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah.
The Toxic Waste sort of performing some sort of exorcism and releasing the inner child of Jason. Again, it connects back. I like that.
And here we have a final
That's a beautiful
couple,
shot.
not a final girl. Again, I think Adam trying to be very inclusive of everything. And it's like this dog running up. It's very the Rennie Harlan sort of.
When he pisses Freddy back to life.
I don't know. It's just.
I love the way that looks right there. The mask looks
and
cool.
hey, we were talking about it, I think when we weren't recording, but the chrome mask that's used on the posters and was in the trailer
poster,
and
yes.
stuff. Like that would have been cool to somehow see happen,
Well,
for
you know
real.
how Jason pops up again at the end and
When he was reborn, he should have been,
he should have looked really, really
Uber, a
cool,
little bit
like
Uber Jason.
almost like an Uber Jason.
Yeah.
And he could have had that silver mask or chrome mask, right?
And there's Kane Hodder's arm playing.
You can tell, because see how much bigger the arm
it
is
is.
than
It's very
Robert
thick,
Englund's?
yeah.
It's like a thick boy Freddy.
But it is Robert Englund's laugh. They did borrow that for this. And
Well, this is
there
part
we
of
go.
my unofficial trilogy. I've mentioned this before. That goes Freddy's dead, then Jason goes to hell into Freddy versus Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I believe that the Freddy that dies at the end of Freddy's Dead is the arm that comes up and pulls Jason down into hell. And even though it's obviously Ken Kersinger and not Kane Hodder in the Ronnie Yu Freddy versus Jason, I still believe it is that Part 8 Jason now spit out into this other world. That's just, again,
I mean,
speculating.
you can really do what you want a lot with these,
of course
with these
can.
characters,
You got any last minute fun facts?
there was just,
I'll even do the Art the Clown horn if you have one.
the original cut for this film was over 2 hours, and even he will say it was boring. It was too much. He likes to really explore all the character, motivations and stuff, and film a lot with them. But he does say he does wish that there's about 10 to 12 minutes, he says, that he does wish he could put back in, even with the unrated version, to make it more the story he wanted to tell. He said these cuts were very much products of the studio influence, having a theatrical and then unrated version, but they wanted it to be very short.
Well, at least in this edition that we've watched here, boy, the effects that they did get in are so good in this movie. And it is so refreshing to actually see some of that beautiful artistry end up on screen.
Yeah.
For once.
Yeah. And we're getting it. Like, I love that we have an uncut version, and it's not like, oh, we found someone's VHS for 30 years. It has all the effects that were cut out. Like, we're seeing them the way they were intended to be in the film and whatnot.
I just saw something that
Noel Cunningham, one of the assistant editors. Look at that.
Oh, wow. He shows up a lot nowadays in interviews. He's sort of become the spokesperson for his dad's side of this franchise.
Yeah.
And he's actually very well spoken and really passionate about these movies. So he's definitely a good steward to have on your side. But I was noticing a minute ago, it bears noticing that Kane Hodder was also credited as the stunt coordinator for this film. And even though there is a lot of moments in this film that he's not on screen as Jason, I'm sure he was still working diligently, coordinating all the other stunts. And if you just watching this, there are a lot of real physical and practical stunt work in this film that's really effective. So you can tell it was by his very measured hand.
They were developing a real high-end video game for this film too that never came out.
Oh, that's too bad.
Probably turned into what became the Friday the 13th game that everyone loves nowadays.
Yeah.
But they were trying back then too.
So what do we do next? What's next? Oh, I just considered it. We have the James Isaac film, the 9th sequel, 10th film in the Friday franchise, from 2001, I believe, Jason X.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, let's give the audience a quick little tease. In one singular word, what do you think of Jason X?
Wow. Fun.
That's 2 words, but okay, I'll give that to you.
Okay, I just stop at wow.
Wow would have worked, but fun is better.
Again, I really have to shut off the switch at a certain point with a franchise this big, and try to be but it wasn't made well, or they didn't have this effects or that, or they're jumping the shark and they go this is number 10.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And every time they make one, they try to give you it was the last one. So they do keep painting themselves in these corners of giving their characters ends and then continuing, which makes it every time get a little far-fetched.
Yep.
So of course, by the time you're in Jason X, we are out there.
And it's also interesting to me that you were mentioning how it had been a good, 4 years between Jason Takes Manhattan and Jason Goes to Hell, which is a lifetime in the Friday franchise world. Now we go all the way from 93 to 2001.
Yeah. Well, Cunningham was kind of, he was waiting, trying to do the Freddy versus Jason, and it wasn't happening, so he just had to keep on making more money in another movie.
And James Isaac was also sort of an acolyte of Cunningham, and had directed a movie called The Horror Show that we mentioned last episode that ended up being one of the House films that Cunningham produced. Yeah. So again, another director that he could sort of work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, I think you just have to have fun with it, and it's got some interesting ideas that I kind of, if you're going to go in space in the future and do all this, it's kind of interesting.
I actually cannot wait to talk about it, because if it's going to be anything like the last, this and the last 9 episodes have been, it's going to be a blast. Yeah. I've had so much freaking fun.
This has been great.
Recording this episode today. And just like we always say, it's so true. Every time we're down here with the headphones on in front of the microphones, like you're seeing right now, Joe and I literally picture every single one of you all around the world here in Joe's basement with us. And that's what makes the experience of recording these fun, and we love you guys, really. I know we've said it like 31 episodes in a row, and a lot of times maybe I even use the same language when I'm saying thank yous and all that, but I hope you guys know how truly sincere we are when we literally look you in the eyes and say, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for now years and years of support of Haddonfield Radio. We've been doing this since October of 2022.
It's crazy.
Which is not a huge, long amount of time, but we haven't stopped since then. It's been nonstop, and yet it's been the most creatively rewarding project I think I've ever been a part of in my lifetime. So thank you so much, and that's all really, really, really tributed to you. So thank you.
Yeah, you have to have a reason to do things, and you guys are our reason.
Thank you. It's quite literally the only reason, other than we love doing this, we love creating, but the only reason we do Haddonfield Radio is just to reach out to other fans of these movies like you guys and hang out down here in Joe's basement and talk horror and movies, and trailers. And just mentioning, if you haven't seen it, for our listeners in the present, we just released a brand new deep dive episode of all 4 Jaws films. We call it Haddonfield Radio Needs a Bigger Boat. It's under our Haddonfield Radio Trailer Park banner.
There's a playlist for all the Trailer Park episodes.
We just released it basically just like a few days ago for our listeners in the present. So if you haven't checked it out and you are a fan of the Jaws films, or if you want to celebrate Jaws' 50th anniversary here in 2025, that's our episode about those movies, which we love.
Yeah, check it out.
But we'll be back next time with, amazingly enough, episode 32, which will be our penultimate episode in terms of the Friday franchise. Now, we're going to be doing Jason X, and then episode 33 will be the 2009 Platinum Dunes remake, Friday the 13th. And then we will have 2 surprise bonus episodes.
That will tie into Friday the 13th.
And that will round out the year. So more on that when we get closer. But next time we'll be back talking all about Jason X. So that should be a lot of fun. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode and this deep dive into a really fun entry. Way more fun than it really has any business being as a 9th film in a franchise.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think you could watch this and be like, man, the whole time, or you just let go and have fun with it. It's a fun movie.
Crack a cold one with the boys, for Christ's sake, and watch Jason Goes to Hell, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you to Adam Marcus for that wonderful intro.
Thank you, brother. We love you.
And thank you for making a fun film to watch.
And thank you, guys. We love you all so much. We'll be back next time. Anything else you want to add?
That's all I got.
All right, hold on, because I got to find a language here.
Okay. Don't mind the weird edit here, everybody. I'm going to be giving Christian some time to find his outro.
Hold on. We might as well just all hang out and do it with us. You think, I always forget to get this one together. It's always something, and it happens to be this every frickin' time.
I have to start to put a reminder in every time to say, to pick a language.
Hold on, we're going to get there. You want to pick a language?
Look it up in Klingon.
I wish you had it in here because I'd do it. Let's see if they have it. I wouldn't be surprised. They don't have it.
No, go with some Japanese. Have you done a Japanese yet?
I'm going to give it a shot. Let's see. This could be tremendously either racially insensitive or embarrassing.
Don't
to
blame me. I told you to do it.
Oh, look. You want me to read that? Okay, I give you some sort. I'm going to do my best here. All right, I'm going to do my best here. All right.
Start the outro again.
Okay, so anyway, thank you guys so much. You know, we couldn't do it without you. We love you all so much. YouTube and Spotify. We love all of you. And anything else that you'd like to add?
No, well, killer, mommy, killer.
Killer. Well, I guess until next time, my name, as always, has been Christian White.
And I'm Joe Francazio.
Tenoshi Haro Ino o Sugoshi Kudasai Halloween.